This is another episode of Summoning Insight with me and MonteCristo. What's funny is I actually almost never do call you MonteCristo, but another thing people might not know is because the name Monty does sound like obviously it's a real name if you put a Y. I have always called you Monty as though it was like your first name, which is why it always does freak me out when your wife calls you Christopher. I'm always like, my brain's always like, who? Oh, she means Monty. That's what my brain tells me. I never call you ever.
My wife actually calls me Monty in front of esports people.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just so it's not confusing, right?
Right.
And yeah,
Okay,
because look, people don't want to say Christopher; they just want to say something shorter. So I just end up being Monty. Now most everybody just calls me Monty. So it's just easier. It's just easier.
Do you know what's sad? That's actually one of those rare things right, that people don't know, which if you know, obviously one of my heroes back in the day was Christopher Hitchens, right? Because he was so charismatic and so well-read and so intellectual, you know. And one of the things he used to say to me, witty, Monty, because, you know, when you do a lot of interviews and shows, you just come up with, like, clever ways to say things, you know, like a shorthand for how to explain a situation. So he used to famously say, because of his certain political and religious positions, Monty, that when people would call him Chris instead of Christopher, he'd say, sorry, I don't do circumcisions, because obviously he was politically against that, right? But then one time, only once ever, someone actually did point out, like, but isn't your nickname Hitch? And even he had to sort of pause and go like, and you could tell for once ever in the history of the internet, like even Chris Hitch was like, shit, they got me. It's like no one remembers that once. It's all good. Because actually, by the way, if you don't know, that's also how the internet's changed, guys. Back in the days, I'm such a boomer. I actually remember in like 2010 or whatever, when like Google Video, before YouTube was a separate company. You remember this, Monty? They had Google Video, and no joke, me and Anders, this is like our origin story, because I've asked him about this. Me and Anders, I'm pretty sure, typed in Christopher Hitchens debates, and we just watched every video on there. And you're going to go, what do you mean every video? There wasn't that many videos back then, I'm telling you. Like, we watched all of them, like 50 of them or something. So there's the origin story, how you end up like this. Although circuitous path, there was a lot of other things happening along the way. Anyway, we're here on Summoning Insight. If you don't know, by the way, guys, you're not interested in all drama about the past of people's lives. All right, I thought that was just the fucking topic du jour. Okay, well, you want to keep it professional now, do you guys? I thought you were down in the mud, just fucking raking around, looking under stones. Oh, what's that creepy crawly? So that's what you're all about now, esports. So just saying. Just
waiting for the next tweet barrage and thread on live stream fail.
Yes. Do you know one thing I do think is weird, Monty? As a little top, we'll get into the league soon, calm down. One thing I would just ask is this, Monty. I do feel like actually there is a very obvious show that is missing in esports because it's the most obvious one. It would have to be something like a semi-live, almost like a sports center of esports news. Dude, I feel like that would pop. You know what I mean? Like, because here's the thing. The J Clockies of the world do tweets. And then like Four Horsemen, we're usually like lagging behind a bit. And then we try to do like more of a, you know, comprehensive take on it with like, we're more like C-SPAN or something at that point in time, mate. So the problem is, where's the one in the middle? Where's the show that like you go to that night and it's like today's drama and it's got like the host and shit? I'd watch that.
Like on CNN where you have the TV behind you and you're just showing the latest Dr. Disrespect tweets. Calling experts.
No, like think about it, because essentially it's like being on Twitter, but it's just on Twitter, it's all disorganized and it's no connection. You're waiting for the algorithm to fire the next tweet. In fact, by the way, I will just say that particular story, which you're not going to get into, guys, but as a meta-analysis, I will say that story showed that those algorithms only work for like generalized content over a few days. Because you know the problem with those things is when you use the For You page, the tweet will say like 3 hours ago, and on a story like that you'll be like, oh, that's before the other thing, and then it's all out of order, isn't it? And you're just like, oh shit, was that before he did the tweet? Or so it makes it a nightmare trying to follow it all, keep track of it. But it's like, as I say, like almost like Hurricane Katrina style. You really do want like that broadcast, like, and now we're going over to the South. And also, joke there would be, if you could do that, I could also appear on it like Kanye, obviously my role model in life. And then I could say some shit like, you know, Western esports don't care about Saudi gay people or some shit like that. Do my version of the George Bush line. I can't lie, by the way.
I don't know where you were going with your Kanye reference, but I'm glad it's one from like 20 years ago as opposed to one more.
That's the safest one, because here's the thing. Even though everyone did think he is wilding, I think we all loved that fucking line when he said it, didn't he? Like, remember, dude was on TV. It was just like, George Bush doesn't care about black people. Bro, all I'll tell you is this. Back in the day, I remember one day just smoking weed and just watching that about 50 times in a row, mate, and laughing my ass off. Because I remember thinking, although the sad thing is, part of me, the immature kid in me did think like, haha, if I ever become famous, I'll cause trouble like that. And you know what, Monty? I never did. In the end, in some ways, that's the worst thing. I actually did have all the worst role models, didn't I? Because I look at it now, Monty, and here's the logic that turns out didn't work. I used to think if people like Kanye can get away with it, then all I have to do, Monty, is get really huge and I can get away with it. Then, like, one day, they just overnight took like $1 billion off him, and I was like, oh shit, wait, even he can't get away with it. What the fuck am I doing? This is my life, bro. Like, even I had to realize, like, whoa. Maybe because what I've learned is this, Monty, I've actually got a new theory for you. And after this, we'll talk about league, because actually this does apply to league, to be fair. You know, when people use that term like fuck you money, I actually think there's no such thing as fuck you money. Because as I say, look, any amount of money in the world, they could do stuff like the IRS can take it from you, the government can seize it, you can get sued, you can lose your stock value. Almost all the current like ways of having money, you can get it taken off you or fucked over. But here's the thing, there's no such thing as fuck you money. It can be taken. There are only fuck you skills. Because here's why Kanye does have fuck you skills, Monty. Even if he goes to zero, tomorrow he can make some music or like some fucking shoes or something, and they will sell. Like that's the strength right there, isn't it? It's the ability to regenerate the wealth, if anything, not to have it and then keep hold of it, you know.
I mean, he can produce for somebody else. He's a better producer than he is a rapper.
He's mega. Oh, the biggest shock of all time is if he ever just went privately behind the scenes and was just a credit down there. He'd have all the work in the world, wouldn't he? Everyone would hire him to do their album, of course, yeah. True. By the way, ironically, that does also apply to me, Monty. You know, one thing that all the idiots who try to cancel me have never understood. The second you cancel the public persona Thorin, I have already done this, but I will just ghostwrite all the shit. The joke is I'll just be writing skits for someone else. I'll just write fucking articles for someone. I'll just do it all behind. You'll never be able to stop me, you idiot. Like, because again, it's about having the skill set. People appreciate the skill set. They will hire you and work with you. People, especially, by the way, if they don't have to carry, in this case, they'd be loving it. They get the work without the associated aspect of the persona. For some people, the persona's a negative, Monty. For some, it's a positive. For some, it's a negative, isn't it? You never know.
Man, producing documentaries, that you'd be great at that. All the esports shoulder content. So yeah, totally agree. I do want to talk. I want to start with.
On that note, I want to give a shout to one thing. One thing I did criticize Riot for when they did some of the skin stuff is, to be fair, they did also do what I suggested they do, which is do a video where it was all like people who aren't Faker talking about Faker. Now, I wasn't as big a fan of how they did it, Monty, because for me it was a bit meme-ish. Like, if someone comes to me, Monty, and I'm like a serious analyst, and they say to me, "What's your favorite Faker moment?" I wouldn't say him eating a vegetable. You know what I mean? I'd say someone in the game, or like, you know, when he was genius and did like this map rotate. I'd say something like that, you know. So I did think that was a bit cynical. All too when he rolled on the floor, like, again, that's like something like a little kid would say, but the premise was good. I did think it was cool that they got all those big famous people that you all know and give like their take. That was cool. I thought that was dope.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I would have maybe selected a few more people who could speak English, who were actually there for good chunks of his career, instead of just taking a bunch of Western casters who saw him maybe once a year. But, you know, some of those people might have said no. Just get put that out there. Some of those people may have just straight up said no to any kind of interview request. Anyway, I do want to talk about a historical topic, because I think it's very interesting to start to have the discussion about Gen.G in the ranks of the greatest teams of all time, because as many of our listeners know, we actually did with Dom do kind of a ranking of the greatest teams of all time, and much to the annoyance of many of you last year, we actually ranked JDG last year as the best team of all time, even though they lost Worlds to T1, which of course then pissed off all the T1 fans. How's that going for you now, T1 fans? How's this roster doing since Worlds? Just gonna say, you know, maybe if, and we said, you know, if T1 continues this role, maybe they are the best team of all time. Well, it's not going great. It's not going great, guys. But I think we do have to say, all right, we're looking at a Gen.G team, this iteration of the roster. Obviously, a couple of members are still there from before, from last year, in Chovy and Pays. They replace everyone else. I mean, Lehens was there 2 years ago. Now he's come back, obviously. So there is established synergy, at least with Chovy. But obviously, when Lehens was there, he was there with Ruler previously. And then we have Canyon, a player who many consider to be the greatest jungler of all time, World's final MVP, right? And Keen, who has been kind of criminally underrated throughout his career. And finally, I think people are realizing exactly how much value he brings to a good team because of his versatility and his very unselfish play style. And so if this team is going to, you know, right now win a title in Korea, and then we're going to see them immediately transition over to an MSI win. They look amazing in this meta. It is hard to conceive, unless there is a big meta shift, that they're not going to win the esport. I mean, the meta shift isn't coming for the Esports World Cup, which starts next week, guys. And then after that, beyond that, what are we looking at? Are we looking at, if the meta doesn't shift, is this a summer win? Is this going to be, probably we won't see AP junglers all the way into summer playoffs and worlds, but you never know. And so what happens if they Golden Road? Is this the best team of all time? Thoughts, Thorin? What would it take for them for you?
I mean, the interesting thing about it is, like, even the initial thought I had doesn't really make sense. Like, for example, the initial thought I had was this, Monty. The reason why I think most of us actually opted into the Gen.G pick, even though they never did win Worlds, which is the biggest accomplishment, is because a massive part of it was, if you watched how they played, they looked like essentially, we've made this point many times, but I can't overemphasize it. The way that all the players were playing like their best role, but then fitting together, was so incredible. Like, I've always said, like, 369 and people like that, the way they fit together, even missing, was fucking mega that year, mate. Like, that's the other thing. Like, every aspect of what makes a team, how you fit together, how you play throughout the game, your coherence, or know what to do on the set, that's one of the factors that gives it. So the immediate reason, like, I feel a repulsion to say it's not the greatest team ever, even if the Gold Road, this one, Monty, is because you watch it, and a lot of it is Chovy being the best, right? Like, if you put anyone other than Chovy, they probably aren't even winning, quite frankly. They'd be very good still, they'd be a contender, but the thing is, he is like the parallel discussion, by the way, if the Golden Road is he the greatest player of all time in this year? Like, this year might be the best year ever for an individual player. But even then, I realize you can't really then just say that doesn't make you a great team, though, because, like, couldn't you say the same thing about like a Michael Jordan Bulls team or something? Like, they weren't going like 5 players deep with all stars. So to be fair, you could still be the best team and have the best player ever. So I think they'd certainly be a contender for it. Because if you even think of the way they're doing it, Monty, they haven't lost a series so far. And in fucking LCK, they haven't lost a game. So, I mean, admittedly, they're playing right now, so they could do the funniest thing ever and make Thorin wrong in real time. But they haven't even lost a game so far. And remember, guys, in BO3s, it's actually standard in fucking LCK. You lose the odd one here and there, especially when you play the big teams. So, like, actually, right now, they might be better than ever. Like, pretty sweet. You can absolutely, Monty, I think, unironically ask this question, which is, if you put a pin in it right this moment, is this the best LCK team ever? They'd be up there. They'd be fucking up there, mate. I'll tell you what, it's pretty good. Because as you say, you look at all the players, it's not like it's the perfect team and how it's constructed, but the way they play together, it is very impressive. Like, they're not one-dimensional like people want to believe.
Yeah, and, like, obviously this meta is empowering them, and they look, I think, especially coming off of MSI, you're like, okay, this is the best team in the world. But then there was a meta shift. And right now, I would say it is hard. And we talked about this on Power Spike, to kind of rank 2 and 3 in the world right now. But it's not hard to rank number 1. It's not hard to rank number 1. Yeah. Because if anything, this meta has just empowered Gen.G further. And it certainly is a weird meta. We're not going to get a lot of metas over the years that are AP jungle, like double AD focused, right? Which is also, it's not just about Canyon, it's about Chovy being super good at some of these champions that are meta right now. And we keep seeing him play mid Lucian and some of these other kind of unorthodox picks. But they were winning before this meta. And when we talk about Gen.G last year, I think for many analysts, what is so compelling about Gen.G was that it was like, they were the team with just the perfect fundamentals. It was like typical all metas, League of Legends, front to back team fighting, right? Weak side top laning, incredible AD carry play, incredible mid laner. And it just felt like they were the best team ever at just standard play, which is why you rank them so highly. It just felt like, T1 won, but it was because they were playing a T1 meta. And when T1 plays T1 metas, T1 is extremely strong and capable of winning these international events. It's when they're not. And also, arguably, I mean, we could make an argument that MSI last year was a harder tournament than Worlds as well.
Oh, sure.
Because of double elimination. So with the new MSI format over the last couple of years, it rebalances kind of whether it's more important to win Worlds or more important to win MSI. And I think there are debates both ways, but it feels pretty even at the very least. Like, obviously, you have the prestige and the name weight of Worlds, but in terms of actual format to decide a winner, MSI is vastly superior because of double elimination.
I've realized. When I even say it, immediately it'll make you just think like, fucking League of Legends, right? Think of this, Monty. Think of the current format of MSI. It doesn't have to be the double impact. Just do the 2 teams from each region. That means all those years, Monty, we could have had Rocks Tigers there with T1. We could have had KT Rolls there. Could have had Dam1 Plus, another top 10.
Yeah.
That's so gross to think of, innit? Come on, that's gross.
Yeah.
We could have had half a dozen more Uzi I international. You know what? We could have had some amazing shit.
We could have had 0 G2 wins. I mean, realistically,
if it meant those better teams, that'd be legit, though, wouldn't it?
We never would have seen Team Liquid or CLG make those deep runs either. So yeah, definitely worse for the West, obviously.
We'll also say as well, by the way, even though I know a fan's logic would be like MMA math, well, if G2 beat Team Liquid, then G2 would have beat IG. We all know that G2 team never fucking beat Chinese teams, boys. So all I'm saying is this: if you're an EU fan, you have to give only a little one. You have to give a little assist to NA for the alley-oop on that one, because yeah, okay, we beat T1, that's pretty good, but they did do us a favor with that bullshit fucking Core JJ series and beat fucking rookies IG. Like, they might never have been the MSI win without that. We can't know. Although sadly, I do wish I could see that final. If I could run that back and see like IG versus G2 in that final, that's also one of my dreams to say. I think that could have been an amazing match, mate.
Yeah,
they were really good at that time,
for sure.
And if people don't know the rumor, it goes, wasn't there something stupid like they had a fight the day before the Team Liquid? I think there was some stupid rumor that people claimed that like something did happen internally within the org or whatever, but who knows? Who knows?
But anyway, like I think we should start that conversation now, because
what do you think? Where's your take on it? Where would you track them at now?
I mean, if they dominate for the rest, I think if they dominate for the rest of the year, and like, you know, Thorin, they're coming up potentially on an all-time win record in LCK. Yeah, they haven't lost since KT last split, because remember, they didn't lose a series at MSI.
You mean the regular season games before playoffs?
Yeah, the regular season games before playoffs. So if you guys recall, for LCK, you know, they played last split and they had one loss, and that loss was to KT Rolster.
Right? It was KT, right?
Yeah, it was extra funny, obviously, because it was KT. Right. But that loss happened. I'm looking at which week it happened.
I'm gonna guess in the early on, like what, week 3 or something. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, it was like pretty early.
I know by the end they were cooking, because obviously they cooked all the top teams, if you remember.
It was week 4. They lost to KT 2-0. And that was.
By the way, I'll tell you another thing to track. Here's something you should look up, because you would appreciate this stat. Dude, I'll bet they're on a mad win streak against T1 now. Like, I bet no one in history's ever had a win streak like this against T1.
That's true. I can't look it up at the moment, but that's true.
Yeah, but for another show, look it up. I bet it'll be 10 wins or something mad, won't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably, I mean, their win streak might go back all the way to the finals.
Well, remember, they won at Worlds as well last year too, with the old lineup. So, dude, they've won loads of matches. Because think about it, in history, it's very rare you win against T1 in any era, you know?
Yeah. And so KT won against Gen.G in week 4, which was Valentine's Day. February 14th was the last time Gen.G lost. And ever since then, that was in the first round robin. So you have all of the second round robin, basically part of the first round robin, the end of the first round robin, all of the second round robin, all of playoffs, all of MSI, and all of their matches so far, this win streak. So they must be approaching some of the really historic T1 win streaks at this point in time. And I mean, that in and of itself is potentially very impressive. They were 17-1 in best of 3s, 34-5 in games. Last split.
This is insane. Think about that. I think that one's the insane one, bro. Remember, it's best of 3s. Tons of teams have been top of the league and dropped the game constantly. 34 wins and 5 losses in individual games. That is bonkers, mate. You're playing Korean teams at this point. Like, you should bleed way more than that. That alone, by the way, suggests it could be the greatest team of all time. That's insane.
Thorin, they're playing Hanwha Life right now as we speak. Spoilers, guys. They are up 1-0 on Hanwha Life. That means that they have not lost a game so far this split, and we're in week 3. They are 4-0 in best of 3s, 9-0 in terms of games. They win one more. And then at that point in time, Thorin, what really prevents them from winning the first round robin? Like, basically D+ is the only reasonable opponent they have left. Otherwise, they're just facing the bottom of the table.
Obviously, this could turn out to be something that ages poorly. But I would even ask this question. Bro, you're talking about the meta suiting them, it being good. When I look at this team, I'm actually being serious. What meta wouldn't make this team really good? Like, here's the thing, you could make some of their rivals better. You could do that, Monty. But I think this team could play in any meta. Like, for example, when you're talking about fundamentals, which I agree, that's why the other reason I think we all pick Gen.G is because a bit like the G2 Super team, you could see that team playing in any era because that style would work against a lot of teams. Like, that strength is one of the best strengths to have. Well, I'll tell you what, I actually think the underrated strength in Gen.G is the thing we've all seen Chovy get better at every year of his career mate, his side laning became god tier too. Like they could also win the game in this team, I feel like, without even fighting you. So like I think they could work in a lot of metas, this team, mate.
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
Yeah, I mean, we did talk, what could stop JDG, and I think we were accurate in some of these things, which is that when JDG did lose in the regular season, like a lot of it was Kanavi throws. And then the other thing is like, it's not that 369 couldn't play carries. It was just that the team was so accustomed to playing weak side that what happens if
ruler, why would you play a carries top lane exactly?
Yeah. So it's like what happens if the meta shifts in a way where some of the tanks are less viable, or you have to play more towards top, which is actually, what happened to a certain degree.
Yeah, true.
And then what we didn't really predict was like double Hail of Blades, T1 expertise in the bot lane, really bullying them out.
Picks.
Yeah. So
please. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. Man, that game right there is how you torture me in Guantanamo Bay. You just have me like Malcolm in Clockwork Orange, and all I'm watching is that fucking like game 4, like get off the sand soldiers. Like that's I get PTSD off that game. I can't even lie, guys. I have actually rewatched some of that series, but I just watched the first 2 games, which are really good, and I actually have to turn it off. Things I get sad. Like I can't watch this anymore.
But anyway, like Gen.G, it would be shocking if they didn't lose any games this split, but they haven't lost any games so far. And, they've already cleared T1, who is like, arguably the second best team, but no other team in the LCK really looks super great so far. Like Hanwha has been improving, but I would say Thorin and Peanut have looked pretty shaky. T1, they're perfectly capable of getting advantages, but then they've had a very weird tendency just to throw. Like they should have 2-0'd Kwangdong. They threw the first game against Kwangdong Freaks, and they almost threw game 2 as well. So T1 really overpressuring, overextending, overplaying their hand a lot of time right now, and they're letting their opponents back in the games.
The interesting thing is this. Obviously, I agree with you. Gen.G is way out in front. But actually, the race for like second and third is mad open. Like, if people don't know, the shocking team this split is actually D+. Like, they're not only looking good, like Chovy has had some good games. Like, the difference is we're in a world where, like, actually Kwangdong and D+ can actually contend with, like, Hanwha. And look, we'll see, potentially even T1 if T1 fuck up out. Because another thing about T1, this squad, mate, is they also were one of those teams that's won a lot of series, but they always do it in the third game. Like, you can trip over and lose one of those series. I think it can get spicy.
Yeah. I will say, like, D+ started stronger than we kind of saw them recently. Like their Nidalee priority against T1 was just super wacky, and they played very badly in the T1 games. And I was very surprised to see them like let T1 have Ashe for 2 games in a row. And that's just the pick you just don't let T1 have. Like you cannot allow them to have Ashe. It's too flexible for them between Gumayushi and Keria. They're too good at playing these pick compositions and bullying you in lane. So not acceptable to have these picks. And they didn't really have any setup for the Nidalee. The comps were like really quite bad. So D+ has had some, I think, very bad drafts. And then from there, they still are displaying some of the mid and late game shot calling issues that we've seen, but why wouldn't they? Because they didn't really make any adjustments that would solve that problem, right? But Lucid's been pretty good, I think, when he's not on early pick Nidalee.
Oh, it's pretty good. No, by the way, that was even one of the rare cases where if you have to lose someone like Canyon, that's about the best replacement you can get. Like that player is tracked from the moment he came in the LCK. Like clearly has talent. He's going to be a good player. If anything, it might even be better. They just have the pressure on him. Like D+ hasn't had crazy expectations. They're trying to work their way back into being relevant. So I think it's a good spot. By the way, if you want to make the case, Monty, which no one thinks you can make, that like maybe Chovy is the best player ever. Here's what people aren't thinking about. Think how dominant Gen.G is right now. Like if we held the finals today, Gen.G just beats T1 if it's even T1 in the final, right? Well, here's what they're not thinking about, Monty. What the fuck are they going to say if Chovy, and it'll only be Chovy because remember all the other rosters were different. What if Chovy wins 5 LCK in a row? In a row. Like, guys, Faker has never come close to that. He's got 10, but that's spread over all. That's 5 in a row is insane. Like 4 already is the record. Like 5 is fucking, that's inconceivable, isn't it? Like that's really impressive. And it's absolutely plausible right now. Yeah, it's on the table.
It's also with the fact that he, over those titles, is the only player who's remained on this team.
Yep, exactly. No, so it has to be him.
That's my point. Everybody else.
If it had been the same roster, you could say, well, maybe it's the strength of the team. Like, it's just him. He's just the guy, and he is him, as the kids say. He is him. That's why this is where you always don't know I actually am a fair person. Because all I'd have to do if I wanted to absolutely fuck you idiots is when Faker wins Worlds, I could join your side and accelerate it and go, he is the GOAT right now, Monty. Oh, but wait, did he lose to Chovy right now? Well, if he's the GOAT and Chovy beat him, then Chovy must be the GOAT. I could do that. I could do the same bullshit you all do, but I don't play the shell game, as it were. Shout out Herman S. I keep it legit.
I think when you look at Chovy and like, okay, you might say, well, Lehens was on the first title and then now he's back for the fourth title and possibly fifth title, right?
It's a different lens to me, though. He's developed
it was
over the years,
and also it was a different team dynamic because in that era, it wasn't Lehens and Chovy doing the shot calling. It was Peanut, right? And having Ruler was huge on that team. And then over time, like, it wasn't just, hey, Chovy's good in terms of his laning or in terms of his mechanics or his champion bullets. Now he's a leader and the primary voice on this team as well. So it just kind of keeps getting better and better, right? And I think
I've got a point. I've got a point I think actually subtle that people will miss as well, Monty. I think actually we've been incredibly fair with people like Chovy and Knight. We actually have made them earn it before we gave them the ultimate status, Monty. You know, in games like CS, people hate on me because they think I'm being horrible to like Zemu because I don't say he's as good as Prime Simple. No, it's because I actually know he isn't. Like, I know there's still a level he could go to where he could become the greatest player of all time. So I think we've actually been very reasonable. If you go back and watch this show, dude, even like 2 years ago, we're mad. I mean, 2022, we're still mega critical of people like Chovy when they have their moments when they don't perform internationally.
Especially international,
they fall in the final, or the worst, obviously. I remember, but dude, back in the day, some of his problems were obvious. He didn't communicate. He just played like it was solo queue. We've been very reasonable how we've tracked this player. The point is, though, now is the time. I agree with the point of this segment. Now is the time to give him his flowers, though. He is the dominant player, winning all the time, and the eye test checks out like a motherfucker in the server, guys. Really,
it's the eye test and what we know is going on behind the scenes with moving Peanut off this roster, right? Because that void had to be filled, and it has been filled by some combination of Chovy and Lehens. And both of them were on a previous iteration of this roster where they didn't have to do that role. So I think I mean, I'm sure Canyon helps as well, but from what I understand, just talking to people at Gen.G, that's just kind of how this team is operating at the moment.
Also, I've actually contacted Arnold from Gen.G. I shouldn't say this now, but I figure whatever, the info's out there. And he's agreed that later in the season, when they're really, really dominant, just before the end of the season, they're going to actually take Chovy out and put in Porby. And when they lose the game really badly and Chovy comes back to win Worlds, then Chovy's the GOAT. So we've arranged it all. That's how it works now in League of Legends.
You're going to trade for Porby?
Yeah. The old approach was silly, Monty. Chovy could have just stayed in the game and been the best ever and been hailed it. But what you have to do is put Porby in, make the team a lot worse, and then it's the difference between the Porby team and your team with your guy. That's what gauges GOATness. So, you know, like Rookie and Knight, those players I overhyped, never even been replaced by Porby, so can't be the greatest. So, jokes on me. They just stayed playing. Jokes on me. You know, the one that does tilt me about that, Monty, because I hate when people just rewrite history, is the worst thing about that narrative is you remember the weeks before Faker went out. He himself was shit back then. I know he got injury, but he was pretty bad those weeks before they replaced him with Porby. They act like he was prime Faker, got replaced, they were terrible, then he came back and they won it. It's like, no, fuck off. Like, he himself was in really bad shape that summer. Maybe partially because of whatever injury was developing, but he was pretty shit himself, guys. And that was a bad team at that time. That's actually why, if anything, here's the joke, Monty. Do you want to know why I do give him props? Well, I don't believe fucking Bengi was the coach, so I believe he did coach his team back and to be really good. I'll give Faker that props. I think he might get extra props for that aspect. He seemingly was the secret coach, wasn't he? So I could believe he helped refigure things and stuff. You can give him that credit. Doesn't have anything to do with the game, though, does it? That's the coach credit. There you go.
So yeah, just a fun topic, something to chew on as we look forward to the rest of the year and think about Gen.G's level of dominance.
It's one of those topics where it's why, if you remember, Monty, dude, I did a great job with it last year. I set up right around MSI that if someone wins it, you got to look for the Grand Slam, because that's the sort of thing where you don't want to wait until it happens or doesn't. You want to sort of start thinking about the concept, what would it mean, and then you look, and then obviously it didn't happen, but it means if it ever does happen, it's going to be super exciting because we'll have all followed like the road to the Slam, as it were, or the fucking golden path or whatever you want to call it.
Yep. Yeah, it's good. I'm excited. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen this year. Again, we'll see what the meta shift.
I think this is the best chance I've ever seen, because the difference is, like you say before, it's really those BLG series at MSI. If BLG had like totally pushed Gen.G to the absolute limit, then I'd be like, whoa, it's wide open. But right now, it does feel like if Gen.G sort of hold serve, they can do it. You know.
I would also say that BLG's current form, while still very good, and they're still an elite team in the world, like Knight has not looked as good recently.
Oh no,
as he did earlier this year. So that's concerning, because Knight also did not. I mean, I think Chovy pretty definitively showed that he's better than Knight at the moment at MSI, and he definitely checks out again, but via the eye test right now, comparing those two players. But it's so early in the LPL season; these matches are so low stakes. Basically BLG's already qualified for Group A, and these teams are just beating up on the shitters for the most part in this preliminary, like in the the summer placements is what they're called.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading too much into it at the moment. I can't imagine that BLG is at their most motivated right now. But yeah, fun topic before we dive into some of the more recent results for you guys. And now seems like a good time to shout Factor, our sponsor for this week's show. As you guys know, Factor can deliver via box with ice. It's actually like a frozen ice pack in it. But the meals themselves are never frozen. That's only there to refrigerate the food as it's sent to you. A variety of meals that can heat up in just 2 minutes. I miss it, Thorin. I miss it from being in the United States. I would have loved to have one today when I was very busy, where I could just pop it in and have a healthy meal right away. Lots of options with good meat, lean meats, vegetables, everything like that. You can get Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, keto meals.
What's your favorite one you've had?
I had like a Dijon pork chop with green beans. That was very, very
good. That sounds nice.
By
the way, one thing I'll say I think is underrated about meals like this as well is a really tricky thing I find about cooking when you're just coming from like a blank canvas of trying to put something together is it's things like pairing like which veg goes with the meat and with which sauce. If you nail that, that's like a lot of the flavor for me. So yep. I love it when people do a good job with that.
Yeah, and also they have all the add-ons, of course, you guys can put in the boxes. So they have 35 different meals every week. They rotate them, so they're not the same every week. You get 60 add-ons. They sent a bunch of protein shakes to me. I really like those protein shakes. I thought they were good. But there's a ton of other stuff that you can toss in there too. Like they've got breakfast, desserts, all kinds of stuff. So just one box that shows up weekly. Very good value, guys. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper than eating out most of the time. And most likely better for you. So head to factormeals.com/LFN50 and use code LFN50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LFN50 at factormeals.com/LFN50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. So thank you very much once more to Factor. I miss you. Please start doing this in Korea. Or the Netherlands for Thorin. You can get HelloFresh in the Netherlands. Same company, by the way, guys. One of them is just the pre-created meals. But actually, the company's based out of Germany, I believe, the parent company. So anyway, thank you very much. We have had HelloFresh here, as you guys know, as well. And I'm a big fan of, I've used both, big fan of both. So thanks a lot to Factor. Is there a league you want to discuss first here, Thorin, as we dive in to this week? We could talk about, actually, you know what we could talk about is the Esports World Cup, because we have all the matches coming up, and we are going to be...
And also, technically, even though it's via drama, Monty, you can already infer some of the people who are working as talent. Spoiler, it's implied by the people so far named. A lot of the big names haven't said yes to this one, Monty. It looks actually like a lot of them are steering clear, although that's where I do wonder, by the way, this isn't a one-time thing, guys. This is going to happen every year. So my question is when do you give in? If, you know what I mean?
The clues, the trail of crumbs are leading directly to MSI in Riyadh next year. And are you going to say no to MSI is going to be the next question, because mysteriously Riot said, hey, we're going to have MSI later this year. It's going to be the start of July instead of May, like when it usually is. What does that coincide with? Oh, right, the Esports World Cup. So it seems very convenient timing. Like, are they really going to run over, like not do the Esports World Cup next year and just put program MSI over the top of it? Or, I mean, the other problem, Thorin, is like, if the Esports World Cup lasts about a couple months, but if MSI takes 3 weeks, what are you going to do? Have another international tournament 3 weeks after that or 2 weeks after that?
No way.
So it seems very likely that that's going to be the case. And there isn't a world where if you want to be a caster, that you don't end up working with the Saudis at some point in time, because guess what? Every developer is trying to give them control of their esport because they'll pay for it. And that means the developers don't have to do it, guys. So fortunately, that's the world we live in. So if you are a caster, you will be doing this eventually. You might as well just crumble now. But this event, and as we said, we will cover this while talking about all of the issues because it's a major international tournament, and not covering it, guys, doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? There's going to be international matches that are played, and we can actually discuss the problems with Saudi Arabia. Unlike all of the teams and the people who are going to this event, we can actually cover it and talk about the problems at the same time. So that
what's the difference there, Monty? Here's the distinction. We can just talk about the problems. They say they can talk about the problems. Do you see the distinction there? It's quite a key one, really, actually, when you think about it. But
it's also,
people have missed that one.
When you're trying to spend all this money to enact sports washing, you can simply not allow them to sports wash by talking about all the problems with it. Because that's how sports washing works. They are purchasing PR. So if you guys watch our shows and watch us talk about these games, we'll talk about the problems as well.
You know what, Monty? I'll be careful how I say this just to protect certain confidentialities. But all I'll tell you is, that recent set of tweets from Team Liquid over the last few weeks? Let me just say this. I imagine there might be people in Team Liquid who actually aren't excited by the prospect, Monty, that we're going to be the ones that push the line and wear a pride jersey to Saudi Arabia. Like, I'm already going, mate. I'm a bit uncomfortable with that anyway. I'm also now going to wear the pride jersey. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, I can just tell you some people aren't a fan of that. So,
yeah. And also, unfortunately, the public perception of not doing that, Thorin, is not very good, because if you decide not to wear your pride jersey, well, maybe people will jump all over you for not supporting, gay people. So I feel like it's kind of lose-lose with that announcement.
But anyway, to bring it back to the beginning, the reason why I set it up that way is I'm not about to now say that some giant caster did it. If you look at the casters who've already come out.
Oh, we know Atlas is going because he was already announced, right?
No, that's a famous one. I mean, the ones that have come out themselves, like these smaller ones in NA, right? If you look at who they are, if you go and look at their bio, they all do like a path to LCS, which isn't LCS with it. So essentially, they're like nobodies in NA, which already implies, one, the big names turned them down. And then two, I also think there's another cynical part, Monty. There's two parts to this. One, I think it's even smarter in a way, because you let all the first wave of people will take the most abuse, Monty, from all the people. Like, how can you work with them? Once it's like next year and 2 years, people will stop. Every year it will be diminishing returns on how much people care about people working this event. So what you do is you let the fucking play. In this scenario, this guy's like the fucking cannon fodder. You just let, this is Stalingrad, and he's the guy with no gun. You know what? You go first, and then we'll send the people with the real guns who actually we need alive. We'll send them later, like there's that. And then also, I'm just going to say this now, Monty. Since they're all doing the same exact script, it goes like this. I'm sorry to tell you guys, you might be disappointed, but you know what? I need the money, and also I'm donating the charity. Since they all say that, I'm even starting to feel like they might have even been told to do that, mate. Like, I couldn't believe they're even cynical. Do you know what? Do you want the most cynical take of all? I'll give you it, Monty. Here's the most cynical take of all. Since we the Saudis have heard that you're having sort of a messaging problem, a PR issue, as you say in the West. So how about, as part of the fee, we'll give you a little stipend and you donate it to a charity of your choice? That would be even more genius, wouldn't it? Imagine that, guys. You've never even thought of that, guys, have you? I'm not saying it's happening, but I'll tell you what, it's a bit suspicious everyone's doing it now. Magically, everyone's just giving the money to charity. What's this? And I'll never understand what that logic is, Monty. Can you know what? I understand I'm autistic and I do go a bit too hard on logic, but I want you to try and explain to me this scenario. Okay. So in this equation, right, as far as with a bit of separation, I'm exaggerating for effect here. Essentially, to me, the Saudis line up a bunch of people on the wall and they're about to machine gun them to death. And as they're doing it, this is an exaggerated metaphor, as they're about to do it, it's this week's executions. It's each year, actually.
They also behead them. They don't actually machine gun them.
No, whatever. I'm making it cool and all. They're about to do the execution, right? And as they're about to do it, they turn and they go, oh shit, I have to organize the esports. Pause a second. You guys who are going to work this event, right? Like, are you working the event or not? Like, tell me now, are you in? And then you go, well, yeah, but right after you kill those people, I'm going to give a tiny amount of the money you gave me to a charity, though. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking? How would that make it better? What? What?
It's also
that is such a non sequitur to me. That's like saying, yeah, they do murder people, but I'm going to go and hug a koala bear afterwards. It's like, well, good for the koala bear. What are you talking about? How would that stop the people being killed? That doesn't mean you care about that. Like, what the fuck?
Well, it's also that the charities that they're donating to are not actually going to be the ones.
There'll be some Western shit, exactly. They're not going to be. They're not giving it to someone who's going to fight them. Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to be like donating to charities that are supporting Saudi women who have been imprisoned for talking about women's rights, right? And if they did, Thorin, and they made that public, guess who's not getting an invitation back to Saudi Arabia?
It's almost like, Monty, the scenario doesn't work, does it? It's almost like that's not what they want, is it? It's almost like, Monty, they want you to give your donation to someone where it's irrelevant and doesn't affect their evil machinations of what they're actually doing in real life. Like, and I love that angle as well. I'll never get the Frankie at Ward angle. It's like, I really care about gay people being killed. Well, I mean, it's very virtuous. Like, you should care about that. You're a good person. Yeah, but rent's a bit slow. Maybe kill a few. It's like, what are you talking? Again, I'll never understand how these people think these excuses don't even touch the sides, guys. What are you talking about? What is I need the money? What even is that? Also, I'm just going to put this out there because I'll never get that angle, Monty. You know what? I would be really sad if I had to leave esports. If I couldn't work in any context and I was kicked out of the industry for real, that would be very sad. I've put a lot of time in it. But I'll tell you what, mate. I would just get another job. You know what I mean? Like, to me, what I'll never understand about that is if the option is like work with people who kill people, and I say my whole life's about caring about those people, I'll just go work in a fucking petrol station. You know what? Is that not a meaningful sacrifice if you care about those people? I think that's a pretty reasonable ask. Go work in a call center. By the way, just do a different career if you want.
It's also the sense of entitlement, Thorin, that like gets me in this situation, which is like, and I have said, by the way, I think casters should take these gigs because there's no escaping from it, but just take the gig and walk away. Like, don't try and be like, well, this isn't as bad if I donate part of the money. It's like, it's the same bad. You're just being an idiot. And like, don't do the thing. I mean, the funniest thing was my mental health angle. It's like, I have to do this for my mental health. And at that point, you're just asking yourself like, all right, guys, well, what about the mental health of the people who are in prison in Saudi Arabia and having their human rights violated? What about their fucking mental health? You know what I mean? So the whole thing is just like outrageous and narcissistic. And it's like, just own the narcissism. Just say, I am going to go do this because I want the bag. But it's also the sense of entitlement, Thorin, because look, entertainment is a hard industry, guys. And like, people are always going to get taken advantage of. And if you can't work super hard and have a lot of talent, you're not going to make it to the top, right? And this is a way where you can get noticed. And also part of it's luck and part of it's getting noticed and part of it's putting yourself out there at the right time. And this could be a ladder up for people, which I think is, I think many people would be smart to try and climb this ladder. But just don't virtue signal while you're doing it. Like, come on, you know what you're doing. You're just a little rat scurrying up a ladder, and just own it. Just own it and say, I really want this.
Are you ready? The metaphor is the ladder is made out of the bodies of gay people and women. And as you're climbing up and your boot crushes into that guy's head who's barely alive, he goes, help. And you go, I've got the pin on. Look, I love gay people. Excuse me, I need to get to the top of the ladder. And then if the guy goes, but what about me? I'm gay too. And then you go, if I don't do this, someone else will. I'll never get that one, by the way. That is the one I don't think I'll ever understand. Like, they're killing people, Monty. Well, won't they still kill people if I don't do? How would that ever make sense? The rationalizations.
Yeah, but you actually don't have to be part of it.
Yeah,
but anyway,
rationalizations are almost more sinister than doing it, guys. Like, what a weird set of rationalizations.
We've talked about this on this show, Thorin, before, but it's like the way both of us got into esports. There was no money in esports when we got in. I got in by volunteering my time as a team manager for a professional team at the time, and I didn't get paid at all. I spent my time building journalism websites, guys, where I not only didn't get paid, I lost money because I was spending money creating the websites, right? And so I was spending money sending myself to events to cover them. I never even conceived that I could get a full-time job in esports. You know, I thought it was pretty fun when, I was working at a law firm in New York, and on weekends I was able to go do MLG events in like Dallas and Raleigh and shit and cast those. I was hosting my own tournaments and paying myself basically nothing to run events in the early days of League of Legends. Thorin, you were working for a pittance writing articles, and it's like we all either lived on that pittance or we had other things. Like, my question to some of these people, if you are saying that I need this bag to survive, how are you, like, reflect upon your own life and how you got to this point where you don't have anything else going on. And especially professional casters, you guys, for the most part, and I'm saying this about my former colleagues, have sat on your ass for 10 years working 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week, and you don't have any personal brands, you don't have any content, you've got fucking nothing. You have built nothing for yourself that you own or other ways to monetize. You've developed no other skills. You don't have business skills. You literally just sat on a broadcast doing the bare fucking minimum for a decade. And like, now you're confused about why you're fucked? Like, come on. And if you are in the tier 2 scene or you're coming out and you're saying like, well, I need this. It's like, why were you investing your entire life in tier 2 League of Legends to the point where you need this? Like, my question for you is, what happens if this bag didn't come along? What would have happened to you? Like, if you need it so badly, like, you couldn't have counted on this. It's like, it is ridiculous that the bag fell to you. Somebody else should have gotten the bag way before you did. They offered 30 people the bag before they offered it to you. So how could you have possibly known you were going to get this money? I don't begrudge you for taking it, by the way. I think you should take it. But it's like, how are we at this point? Like, how are you at this point in your lives? And like, you are not entitled to a full-time esports job. Many of us had to work for years in the industry to get to that point in time, as you have. And it's like, welcome to entertainment, buddy. Welcome. This is how it goes. You get paid shit for a long time. And then if you're lucky enough to break through, then you can actually make, sometimes a lot of money. But also, the other excuse you're going to hear, not only from League of Legends, Thorin, but from other places, is people are going to start saying this line. It's life-changing money. It's not life-changing money, guys. Life-changing money is like $250,000. Like, that is life-changing money in a lump sum all at once. That's a down payment on a fucking house. You know what I mean? That literally can change your whole life. If you are getting $20,000, that ain't fucking changing your life, dude. That's just the only thing that is doing is staving off the inevitable for a few months. That's it. So do not believe people when they say this is life-changing money, because it ain't. It ain't. Like, surely you have skills that could earn you $20,000. Like, maybe not that fast, but it's not going to drastically, alter the outcome of your existence. And Thorin, frankly, if you need that money and it does, you probably shouldn't have been doing esports. That probably was very irresponsible of you. If $20,000 can change your life, you should not be doing esports. The
joke is, if you want to make $20,000 quick, just become a high-paid escort. At least you'd have some dignity. And no one would die in that equation. So, so I wouldn't do it again. Not in that case. That's one thing, by the way. I agree with you. People who came to esports before it was a giant industry, like, we didn't come because there was a career. Like, I would have worked part-time and done esports stuff as long as I wanted to. I'd even say that as an argument now. Like, people do this thing all the time where they make it binary to make it more obvious why they justify what they do. Can't you just work some events and then do a part-time job? You know what I mean? Do like 20 hours a week. Couldn't that pay your rent? You know what I mean?
Look at us, Thor, and we're doing all these esports podcasts right now, and you're doing all your content and your Substack, and like, this is our primary shit. But you know what we do for fun? We do fucking movie podcasts, and it's like, it's great, but is that paying any bills? No, we're doing it because you and I know that on a long enough timeline, we can just chip away at it over years and years and years and years. And then eventually it becomes something, right? But there's always, there's always another angle you're working. You're trying to get your finger into another pie. And it's like, yeah, the show is doing well. The culture channel for Last Free Nation is our fastest growing channel. We're all very proud of the content that goes on that channel. We're trying really hard. We really enjoy making that content. But this is the side hustle we're doing right now, guys. That's the side hustle. And I don't see the side hustles from other people. You have to just constantly be trying to diversify, and then eventually you can kind of integrate that more and more into your primary living, which is what we did with esports. We didn't start full-time in esports. And for a lot of people, it's like, well, you guys have been here forever. It's like, yeah, because I started working in esports in 2004. It's been 20 years, guys. It took me, and granted, I wasn't working that entire time period between 2004 and 2012, but I did not get a full-time job in esports until 2012. It took me 8 years, right? It took me 8 years, an enormous sacrifice, because the job was in Korea, a country I had never been to before, and I had to move there from New York City in 2 weeks. And if I had missed that opportunity, who the fuck knows what would have happened to me? Like, I had to drop everything in my life and leave. And if you're not willing to pack it up and do that, you're gonna have a hard run.
The one rationalization that does have a grain of truth to it, Monty, is the rationalization that it's affecting people's mental health if they don't work at this event. Because technically, Monty, the Saudis do care about mental health, because you can't have mental health if your whole head is chopped off.
That's right.
That's like some Stalin level quote, no head, no mental health problems. That's like a Stalin level quote, isn't it? And by the way, I do love those insane quotes, no man, no problem. It's like, fucking hell. Okay, Joe, I never thought of that one. You certainly got me on that.
So what we do have, to go back to the actual matches of this, guys, is something very interesting. So they have opted, to actually not do what we thought they would do in a bracket, which is put East versus West, East versus West, East versus West in all the quarterfinals. Now they have put Gen.G and BLG on opposite sides of a single elimination bracket. And for those of you who don't know, that's what we're getting. It's an 8-team single elimination bracket.
Where is this listed, by the way? Where do I see this? Just on the Esports World Cup website or something?
Yeah, hold on. Let me... It's... I will get it for you real quick. So basically from top to bottom, of the bracket. So in the upper part of the bracket, it is BLG versus T1, then Team Liquid versus Fnatic. And then the bottom part of the bracket is Gen.G versus Top Esports. And
with BLG T1, for fuck's sake, start right out the gate with that.
And then G2 versus FlyQuest.
Spicy.
And clearly, they wanted to have these inter-regional rivalries between China and Korea to start things off.
Wait a minute. Does anyone spot which of those two results isn't like the other? So remember, it's a single elim tournament, guys. So we've got BLG T1, that could be the final, right? Then we've got TL Fnatic. Whoa, wait a minute. Stop there. Stop the assembly line. Stop the assembly line. And then wait, I thought that was it. And then at the end, we've got G2 FlyQuest. So you mean two Western teams are guaranteed to be in the semi? Bro, yep. This is wrestling already. This is WWE. We have full WWE already. This is ridiculous. But now, TL and Fnatic is going to be ahead of one of BLG and fucking T1. What, they're going to go... Hey, Faker, try making semis like me. Get out of here. Get out of here, you bums. You fucking bums.
But Thorin, it had to be different than MSI, right? And it's clear that they've gone full WWE. Yes, it's very clear. And also, by the way, because this tournament is only 4 days long, those are best of threes. They're best of threes in quarters, and they're best of threes.
What? Yeah. Bro, that means there's a real world where FlyQuest flukes a win over G2, and then we can just say to all T1 fans, if T1 lose the BLG, quad over faker? Question mark. And they'll all just tilt off the face of the earth. Anyway, why are they BO3? Come on, BO5 for fuck's sake. Single limb. We're only getting 7 matches.
But they only have 4 days to run the tournament, Thorin, and they don't want to run 2 best-of-5s in the same day because it might make people tired, I guess.
Listen, if there's one thing the Saudis never cared about in the past, it's making people really tired working in the desert. It's a really good line. It's all good. More Qataris really on that one, but same region. It's all the same region. Yeah. It's all good.
So like it is best of 3s in quarters. It's also best of 3s in semis because they have to play the 2 semis on the same day, which is July 7th.
So you mean to tell me? Well, I guess the one good thing is it's going to be a Western team versus an Asian team anyway. But I mean, it's like, so essentially, it's only if like Gen.G and BLG or something make the fight, we get 1 BO5. Oh, yes. This is going to be a blue balls tournament. They're just blue balls in us. What is this?
Yep. So that's what's happening. It's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So starting on the 4th of July.
Because it's not really on brand, is it? That in their country, you could get the hottest shit in the world and you can only see part of it. Another good joke, but whatever. I'm keeping it subtle. Here's the thing: I have gotten really good money at not saying like the really offensive way of saying it, but like inferring it. I'm getting pretty good at that. I'm getting pretty good. It's all good.
So yeah, that's where we're at, guys, with this tournament. Obviously, some of these matches, like basically what we're gonna see is like good quarters, maybe a good finals. The quarters, for entertainment purposes, Thorin, I do like the way that they did the matchup. So like TL versus Fnatic, that's spicy given what we saw at MSI.
Sure.
It's a great rematch, right? Where Team Liquid won that one. I care less about G2 versus FlyQuest.
Already, logically, whoever wins the TL Fnatic match, their social media account and pros will be insufferable when they're in the semi-finals of this tournament because they're all going to do that thing and so totally like we are in the set. No, it's going to be so annoying. It's going to be so annoying. Like it's already probably going to be Fnatic, isn't it? So we already know how annoying Fnatic is. So get ready for that.
I don't know. Team Liquid won last time. Just putting it out there. It's not like Fnatic looks insane right now or anything like that. Coming up that G2 lost this past week. But it should be fun. Like, and especially because it's a different meta. Like, I'm not going to cry about this too much because at least it's some international competition. And a lot of these matchups, like, I want to see Team Liquid versus Fnatic again. I would love to see Gen.G versus Top Esports. I want to see BLG versus T1. Do I want to see BLG versus Team Liquid? No, but it'll be over in just a best of 3. And then maybe we'll get a good final.
I will say as well, because I just got to put it out there before everything gets ruined. The BO3 does obviously increase the chances that the Western team flukes it.
True.
Like, by the way, dude, G2 plays Gen.G in a best of 3. That's doable. But a best of 5 is a pretty tall measure. But BO3, they could have a game where you're really good and the other game where there's a Baron still 50-50 or something like that's doable all of a sudden. Which, by the way, to be fair, Monty, I will say, that's not necessarily a negative. I have always thought as well, another thing, if you'd have had an open circuit, is you could have small BO3 tournaments where, like, by the way, if people don't know, back in the day when Gambit beat the Koreans, it was just BO3 in that as well. It wasn't BO5s that beat them. So it increases the chances for the exciting upset. So that's not always a pure negative. If anything, this is what people ask for, right? They want chances for Western teams to do it. So if you can win the game, you can win the game.
It certainly increases the odds of an upset, I would say.
Like, put it this way, it's unlike other tournaments. Like, it's plausible. They're a dark horse, but it's plausible G2 could win this tournament.
It'd be tough.
They've got the players to do it. Got the players to do it.
I mean, I think they definitively showed that at MSI, they were a top 4 team in the world. I think it's pretty incontrovertible.
One thing, this needs to be on the record now. This doesn't count for or against the Grand Slam. This doesn't count, guys.
Obviously.
Oh, come on. Because I don't want to hear that, but they didn't win but no one cares. No one cares about that. Shut the fuck up. No one cares about that.
No, this doesn't affect the Golden Road. This is not really an official event, on the calendar. The format is somehow worse than Worlds. It's 4 days long. The players are obviously going to be jet lagged as fuck coming in for this event and then flying back out for it. They're not going to be practicing. It's going to be a mess. But that said, unfortunately, Thorin, I will probably have to douse, put some cold water on the G2 hype because this is not G2's meta, right? Yike is a player who has never played a professional game of Karthus in his entire career, which is partially because he hasn't been in a Karthus meta. But if we were to think about, which AP champions does Yike play? It's like, oh, he's a Lilia player. if you count Ivern as like, I guess you can count him as an AP champion. He's just a weird champion, right? He's not like a traditional AP jungle carry. Then he's got that as well. But it just doesn't feel, as good as Caps is on Tristana, it just doesn't feel like, especially out of the jungle, they're going to be as potent as some of these other teams.
Because also, remember, we said it on the last episode, but the other thing people do forget is, Monty, it starts in like a week and 1 day.
Yeah,
people are really. This is where people are so thrown off from being conditioned from MSI into the splits. Dude, we're almost at this tournament. Like when we do the show next week, it will be right before this event begins, guys. Like it's really fast approaching.
Yeah, I mean, all of the leagues stop at the end of this week. If you guys didn't know, because of course this is classic LCS messaging. Did you know, Thorin, that LCS is on Thursday and Friday this week? It's not.
Of course, I didn't. I only am completely embedded in esports, so no, I didn't know that. Actually, believe it or not, Monty. So brilliant system they've got there. I know.
So because Thorin, Riot has to go on their week-long break, right? Then that's why we get the movement of Thursday and Friday for LCS.
Where do they go off to Jonestown or something? What the fuck are they talking about? You just bring in some staff and cycle the other ones out. Why is it like power to shut it down? Like it's not an old factory in Victorian England, is it? What the fuck are we doing here? All the matchstick girls with Riot hats on, Timo hats.
Well, you see, Thorin, when you shut it down and then give the Saudis the event, there's nobody around to read the protests that people have about this event while it's unfolding.
Esports World Cup, I'm not familiar. I was on holiday that week. What? Was there something going on in Saudi Arabia? Give me a break. Like plausible deniability. I know, it's mad, isn't it?
Which is also why when Riot says, hey, MSI is going to be in early July, it's like, isn't that literally the week that you guys all take off? So
I've just realized, Monty.
It can't be you running
Here's the zinger. Are you ready for the zinger? Here's the zinger for you, Monty. The path to LCS is paved with good intentions. That's actually really good. That's actually really good.
That's amazing.
Because most guys, by the way, here's the sad thing about that scenario. You know, I said, Monty, to be quite fair, they're obviously going to get the most abuse because they're the first wave of people. The sad thing is, though, in your example earlier, they are the people who, in theory, should be the most likely to say yes, though. They have the least opportunities right now. Like, I agree with you. If you hadn't a virtue signal, just say yes, you idiot. Like, if you don't really care about the topic, and you probably don't, let's be real, you're the person. The difference is maybe Dash can turn it down and get another gig elsewhere. You probably need it, mate. Like, no one watches whatever path to LCS is, so you probably do need this gig. Like Monty said, this could actually unironically be your pivot into being a real tier 1 caster.
Yeah, exactly. Or, I mean, like I said this with the LPL casters as well, when 0 of you guys get invited to MSI, might as well cast this because it's an international event. And if you want to prove that you are good enough to cast an international event, maybe that'll get you an invite to a Worlds or an MSI in the future, right? So the spots are going down. And the reality, Thorin, of being a caster right now is that you have to make the money now because next split or next year, when they move to the 3 split system, there's just going to be fewer casting days. That's how it's going to work. And there's going to be another international tournament, which you won't be invited to, so you won't be getting paid. And so where are you? Basically, because casters are on day rates, next year, I can tell you right now, all the regions beside LEC that aren't on 3 splits right now the casters are not very happy about it because it means they get fewer days and therefore they make less money. And they already weren't getting invited to international events.
Another reason why you must be loving it if you're actually a league caster now is if you're one of the top names who gets invited to all the events. Do think about what next year could be like. You could work if you count the Esports World Cup. You're right. That might be MSI to be fair. You could work like 3 or 4 international events next year. Like that's starting to get, are you ready? Like a real esport. Like that's like being in fucking CS or Dota or something. Like that's, by the way, that's way more exciting than just doing, like fucking LEC for whatever, 14 weeks a year or something. Who gives a shit about that, come on. That gets old fast. I mean, the joke is, without being too rude, they are some of my friends. Half the shit I see the people who work LEC casting about, it's like, hey, just changed my haircut. It's like, fucking hell, there's nothing going on in the league. Fuck, what are you talking about? Yeah, I've got hair straighteners too. What the fuck are you talking about? Friends of mine, of course. Friends.
So, anyway, that's where we're at with the Esports World Cup. I mean, it's going to be here and done very quickly. Maybe we get a couple good series out of it. We'll see what viewership. I mean, of course, everybody's saying, I'm not going to watch this event. You're going to watch this event. You are. You're going to go back. You're going to watch it.
All right, are you ready for my other joke, Monty? Here's another one you will appreciate because it's sort of a joke based on ideas from antiquity. I think we should embrace their cultural values and we should ask merely, we should politely petition, think of the way I'm phrasing this, we should politely petition the royal family that the winner, a la the era of the Colosseum, we should have a prize. Like when you win, they bring out 5 slaves or people to be executed, and you get to pick one that goes free. So you can sort of pick, I want him, and that's as the gladiator. That's your prize for winning the arena. That'd be cool. You know, we're embracing their culture. We're bringing a bit of ours with it. Clemency, you know. I think that's a brilliant initiative, and just what they wanted. Like Team Liquid said, we're making the world better. One less person died because of our involvement with the Esports World Cup.
Brilliant.
All I'm saying, guys, the logic checks out. I think this. What's sad is, if I would just go slightly evil, I could be the best PR man for this tournament you could ever see. I could do a hell of a heel turn, Hollywood Hogan style. You know? By the way, no joke, that would be the greatest heel turn of all time at the Esports World Cup. Like you just hear them play that sample of like, what about weight loss? Like, is that Thorin? Like, and she's come out in like an actual blood red suit. Like, I'll be like fucking like The Weeknd or something, fucking Chris Brown do backflips and shit. It'd be amazing. Just get all that Saudi bags of money. I'd be loving it.
Just handing the winners a suitcase of $1 million.
That's one thing I'll never understand, by the way, Monty. I don't really care about this particular topic, but believe it or not, I'll tell you a reason now why I won't work with the Saudis. Because I've gone on about it so much, I would consider it very hypocritical. Like, you can't keep inferring it's bad and then go and do it, can you? Like, so to me, the ship sailed, it's all good. Once it's sailed, it's sailed. I'll tell you one thing that people won't appreciate, because to be fair, they're thinking about their money and their career and all that bullshit, Monty. One of the best things about having a very clear moral compass is you don't sit like devil's advocate arguing against yourself like the fucking devil on your shoulder. Like, but do I need the money? You just go, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing it. And you let that ship sail. And once it's sailed over the horizon, mate, it's done. It's gone. You don't worry about it at that point in time. You know what course you've got. You just go along your path. You know, just what you do. It's all good.
Another interesting little fact, Thorin, is that first place at this tournament gets $400,000 for a 4-day tournament, which is a massive bag.
By the way, there's one thing right there that should be hella fucking motivating. Like, bro, if you are something like G2, if you fucking like get the final of this tournament, so you'll get big money, man. That's legit.
Yeah, 200K is second place. Yeah. So I mean, it's
pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a big, it's $1 million prize pool, and 40% of it goes to first place, 20% of it goes to second place. So 60% in total in that final match. And, you know, especially for League, because Riot has moved away from the prize pool system. And to be fair, like at an event like Worlds or MSI, the teams that go, they do get a lot of money from the skins and the passes and stuff that are sold by Riot for MSI. But that goes to the teams and not really, you know, to the players directly, which is where prize pools typically go.
By the way, just because he has like addressed some of this publicly, so I know it's not like secret. I'm not like fucking leaking anything here. But if you want to know the most hilarious version of selling out I've ever heard, it's when Richard, we were, you know, back in the day, me and Richard used to do all the CS events anyway, before even E-League, you know, we did like DreamHack and fucking Gfinity. When we would do this massive circuit, so we'd be seeing each other literally every like 2 weeks at an event, right? In fact, half of them in the UK, people don't know. When we found out that we were going to go and do E-League in America, be on TV and that, Richard told me, but in that way that only Richard Lewis can do in a conversation, like in a way where you can tell he's not joking for the way he's saying it. Like he sort of like made it sound joking, like I'm just going to fucking full on sell out. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like having a drink or something. And he goes, oh, I'm not fucking around. He goes, when you see me, I love him to say this out loud. He goes, next time you see me, I'll have hair plugs, like white teeth or whatever. Like, and it's like the idea he was going to like sell out his whole image. Like, because when he's describing it, you'll know this reference. I'm just imagining like Richard Lewis is like Max Headroom or something like, what the fuck? Like, as though he's like completely sold out. And he didn't quite do that, guys. He did it a little bit, but like I always just thought like that is the funniest version. If you are, because to be fair, if you are going to sell out, as we say in England, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Like their real problem here, Monty, is they're just thinking they can partially sell out. Like you've already sold your soul, guys. You might as well just lean into this and just get on with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just get into it. Get into it.
But we'll be talking about that. Like we'll have another show before that one starts where we can talk more about the matchups as we get a little bit closer. Yeah. But you know,
we'll do it next week.
It's a blip. It's a pretty small blip on the radar. But we apparently nobody else is just talking about this right now. So might as well be the first one to mention it.
Monty. One thing that is going to be different, though, and this is worth bringing up now to like preempt it, is remember for nearly all the other international tournaments in league, Monty, you usually have at least a week or two since the like regular domestic play ended, and you have a lot of time to go there and boot camp and all, right? Think about how often people have whined that if I arrive late to the international tournament, that's why I did badly. Dude, everyone's going to be like, this is like CS. You just have to be semi-jet lagged to play this tournament. Like, dear, what? You're going to be tired. Like, you're not going to have had like a week boot camp. So this also will be like potentially really crazy, like environment to play in for some of these players.
I mean, LCK
what's the flight time from Korea to fucking Riyadh or whatever, man?
Probably 8 hours. Probably like 8 hours.
Still not great though, is it? So
it's a 6 hour. It's a 6 hour time difference. So they're 6 hours behind Korean time. But basically, like when you look at the actual schedule, Thorin, like LCK is going on their normal schedule this week, right? They're going through Sunday evening, so the teams can't possibly leave before like midnight on Sunday / Monday morning. And wild. The tournament starts on Thursday, so it's going to be a very close time crunch. Obviously, the LCS teams may be able to leave sooner because they're done with their matches on Friday.
Yeah, but T1's on Saturday. T1 plays on Saturday, Monty.
Yep, exactly. Gen.G will be done on Friday, but T1 plays on Saturday, so I guess they could leave Saturday night or Sunday morning, but it's going to be. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a tough crunch.
Oh, mate. Sure. And then after that, T1 then plays the following Wednesday after the tournament. Fucking hell, this schedule's wild, mate. And all I'll say is this. If there's one thing we know is when it's not in their control, T1 don't mind complaining, mate. Let's get ready for that Reddit thread. Because we all know whenever Faker complains about something, the whole world has to stop to address little... Oh, I'm sorry, Faker. Is there a pee under your 17 mattresses? Sorry. My bad. Get under there. Oh, no. Faker can't possibly have no solo queue. Oh, no. Poor Faker. I'll pay him $500 for the Thorin skin. By the way, one thing I actually realize I haven't given Faker credit for. It is just a complete meme, like some Terminator shit where someone had to go back in time and save esports. That the GOAT of esports, Faker, actually doesn't even use skins though. So he is like, in a way, he is the ultimate like anti-hero of League of Legends. In a way, I fuck with that heavy, Monty.
It's so great.
But you have to realize, do you know how bad that would even be? Like, I guess in theory, in like Pro CS, you just show the default skins on stream anyway, but it would be hilarious if like no one in CS, no pro just used the skin and no one gave a shit about the AWP skin. Because like, if you don't know like Kenny S's AWP skin, like Asimov one, it was like super legendary. Everyone that was iconic, like I think he even sold it for like $5,000. So the idea Faker still doesn't use that skin. I love it. I love how demented that is, because you can imagine how raged Riot must be about that, Monty. Because it's just millions just going out the door for no reason. Like that could be your money. And Faker's like, nah, no thanks.
On the other hand, here's something for you, Thorin. There was a Chinese TikTok stream that Faker appeared on for an hour to promote his stream. That during this 1 hour stream, they sold $600,000 worth of his skins and his skin bundles. So it was actually really huge. And it just goes to show, because I always love the League of Legends subreddit, because there's like 10 people on there anymore. And they all think that they're so fucking important. And so they're like, boycott it, ban Ari. No one's going to buy this skin. Meanwhile, the Chinese are like, can we please have all of those skins, please?
Remember, over there, guys, they don't even consider that like gouging. That's just par for the course.
Yeah,
we have loads of cosmetics
games, man.
The fuck out of your course. That's just the way the world is over there. I know.
And it's seen as like a luxury item too. Yeah. So the more expensive it is, the more prestigious it is to have, and the more rare it is. But I mean, like, honestly, guys, do you think that you are smarter than Riot's business analytics unit? Like, they know what is going to sell and what is going to be effective. I don't really give a shit, Thor, that they put a $500 skin in this.
Think of this, Monty. I'll give you the obvious example. Here's the obvious example why people are a bit silly about the price point. $500 for a skin. That's not worth that. You do realize Yeezys were like $500. Every fucker bought those too. You could also just go and buy like $25 trainers, but people were still buying the Yeezys for $500. Weren't they?
It's
not about whether every person buys it. Is there enough whales buy it? If there are, then you obviously price it at that cost.
Yeah. By the way, guys, my Red Wing Iron Ranger boots that I've had for 12 years and have never had to get resold and have worn thousands of times cost like $250, and you were spending $500 on some sneakers. They're gonna fucking fall apart in a year. And obviously, you're not even going to wear them that much because you want to keep them in good condition. So anyway, the whole thing is just ridiculous, right? And you were buying some bullshit no matter what.
Of course.
So, but they obviously are going to sell a bazillion of these faker skins. But that's not what really bothers me, Thorin. Like, I don't really care if there's a $500 skin in the game. What I don't like is that they tied it to Faker, the guy who doesn't use skins, and his induction into a Hall of Fame, and then use that as a vehicle to leverage a $500 skin. It's like, if you want to just make a $500 Ari skin and put it in the store, that's great. But like, even Faker was surprised about the price and clearly didn't know Riot's plans. And now his face is all over this fucking thing, whether he likes it or not. And so that's my problem with Thorin, is that it was yoked to his Hall of Fame. And that's why it feels so cynical, is that it doesn't feel like a celebration of Faker. It feels like we're milking the whales because of Faker.
So what you're saying, Monty, is save the whales. You've actually gone with the most old school virtue signal of all. The old bumper sticker, in it, back in the day. And obviously, as a result, I'll go with the counter, edgy, non-walk take of nuke the whales. That was the famous
that was
bumper
also
sticker
one.
back. That was also the other
or
one.
Shave the whales. That was the other one.
True. Okay. I still always thought nuke the whales was funny because he like combining not caring about nukes with the whales. Like, yeah fuck them. Just smack them. Tell you what, ever since like Free Willy was no longer in the public, no one really cares about whales anymore. If you don't understand that, it's not even a thing anymore. By the way, why did that happen? Like, people go on about the environment, but no one cares about specific animals anymore. You know, when we were kids, it was like certain monkeys or fucking obviously like the elephant tusk or whatever. You know, all that shit. The rhinos.
Because now we're into the total doomerism of everything's gonna die.
Right, it's brilliant. Okay.
It's like, it's not just one animal that's going to go extinct; it's the entire Earth. So we've escalated it to the maximum.
It's just moral people that can't be bought out. They're going extinct. That's the true endangered species in many ways. So all I'm saying is, let's do a Kickstarter for me. Save the Thorins. How about that? There's your new bumper sticker. Save the Thorins. He's never sold out. A Saudi fucking ivory salesman are trying to hunt him down, but he still keeps avoiding him out there.
I will say the last year has aged amazingly for you, because it turns out that all those people who thought you were the ultimate esports villain for making tweets.
It's mad, isn't it? When you look back now, it's
sold out, like actually sold out.
It seems so incredibly believe it or not, Monty, all of a sudden now, arguing that there's a historical etymology to a word seems fairly tame. You know what I mean? Doesn't really seem like they get bent out of shape over, does it? You know, so it just seems like nothing really in many ways, you know.
I mean, it is horrific, though, that the bar has sunk this low to this point.
By the way, listen, Monty, even though it's not as black and white as this, so I don't flex it a lot. I can't lie. Bearing in mind, my nemesis, my entire career has been Carmack from ESL. Sort of is beautiful what happened to that company he works for, that his whole legacy is tied to. I can't lie, Monty. You know what I mean? I sort of fuck with that. I enjoy it, you know, all I'm saying. Not least because there's even a little detail people might not know, which is before he got really, really big in esports, when he was just like working for ESL, but when Twitter was like small in 2009, back in the day, people used to often actually do tweets, which almost were like diary tweets, just random things you're thinking about, because there was no algo, it wasn't going to blow up. And I do remember back then, he's one of the people, which this is a really weird grievance to have, because remember, Carmack's like my age, mate. He was born in the 80s. He used to get really mad publicly over the idea, which he, by the way, I agree with him, that Britain sold out Poland at the end of the Second World War by giving it to Stalin at that like Yalta agreement. By the way, I agree with him. It's just a bit of a weird grievance for someone who was born in the 80s and isn't in any way attached to that. So the idea, like, oh, you sold out my country. Well, you were part of a little bit of a sellout move yourself in many ways. Where you can, you had your chance. You met with your equivalent of Stalin, and what did you do? You also just sold out, didn't you guys? Because I will say, you know, when people do that argument too, Monty, like, but I didn't have a say. I just worked for the company. Yeah, and so think about what you just said there. You can choose to stop working for them. Just stop working for them, mate. Just leave. Just go on. By the way, here's one thing I do think is gross. I agree, for talent in esports, you're shit out of luck. Like, they're just buying up that game and it's going to be all owned by the Saudis, or as you say, white labeled by them at a minimum, and they're going to run the event and have it in their country. That's why the most underrated part of this whole story to this day, Monty, is that part Richard brought up about like 9 months ago or something, where he pointed out that they want to build this whole environment where you go for the boot camps if you're the top teams, and then eventually they're just going to convince you eventually make this your home away from home, and it'll just be like your headquarters will be there. They'll provide all the. Obviously. That's actually the cleverest angle, because that's how you get the whole ecosystem, and then eventually it just becomes normal to go to Saudi Arabia every month or two. I don't think people have thought through, for certain people, for teams and talent, you're shit out of luck. There's plenty of other people in the industry. There's all sorts of jobs you'll still be able to do, though. You won't have to necessarily only work for Saudis. You know, there'll still be some jobs out there. It's just the problem is they might not be the one you want. I think that's the other problem people are having. It's not that they can't get a job, it's they can't get exactly the job they want to do. That's why I always say it's having your cake and eating it, you know. Because that's why you're very right, by the way. The real test isn't even esports. It's if MSI. It's just the name MSI. The second you put that official Riot name there, Monty, all of a sudden, without mentioning names, think of the biggest casters in the world. The problem then becomes, do I want to be the guy who doesn't have that on my sort of like Pokedex, as it were? No, you want to collect all the internationals, don't you? Want to do every Worlds and MSI. We all know the FOMO is going to be crazy if you say no, by the way. If you're sat at home and you don't do, you're going to be thinking, fuck. And so that's the real test. I think that is what will break them all, in my opinion, Monty.
It's also
break them all.
It's also that Riot will start looking and be like, oh, look who's unreliable now.
Not a team player. Not a team player. Yeah, exactly. All that shit.
We'll see if it happens. But I'm just saying, I don't know anything, guys. I'm just reading the tea leaves that Riot has spilt before us, and they are very suspicious. They reveal a dark omen. Let's put it that way. They reveal a dark omen. And even if it isn't next year, guys, it does feel that it is inevitable in the long run.
Oh, sure.
It is inevitable in the long run. Let's talk. I want to get your take on LEC right now, because we have a really like kind of wacky split that's going on where there are just 5 teams that are 2-5 or 1-6, and there's such like a clear division between the top and bottom of this league that it is actually quite boring to watch, I would say.
Oh, I don't think it's very good at the moment. And the other problem you have is, unfortunately, some of the top teams in LEC are actually sort of quite consistent in their narrative, as it were. Like, here's the 2 obvious ones, Monty. Am I going to get excited in the BO1s about Fnatic and BDS? No, because it's not my first fucking day in LEC. They do this every single split. Every single split, they start out, are you ready? The same exact script. Fnatic is looking really hot out of the gate. Maybe they are as good or better than G2 now. Oh my God, G2 lost the game. Is it the end? Of course not. We all know the best. And then BDS's story every single time is they never ever actually look like the best team. The eye test never checks out, but they always do play like an LCK team and just fucking punish mistakes all day long and win games. And you just realize BDS, like I said earlier last year, BDS just exposes that like the LEC has massive problems at the top end of the game, because just playing like fundamentally sound macro wins them so many games is mental, mate. It's actually insane.
Well, you know, it's also like, if you look at some of these teams, obviously, you know, the story is, okay, well, Carmine Corp, of course, the memes are, wow, they got 3 wins. Well, congratulations for them. A lot of these other teams are just fucking terrible. Like, Heretics is way worse than they probably should be. Vitality are way worse than they probably should be. Yep. Mad Lions, now, we all know.
Mad Lions is actually shit, for real.
Oh, they're
actually really bad, mate. Yeah. I'm not joking. They have no win conditions in that team. I'm telling you, there's no win conditions.
Well, I do think it's a bad meta for them, because for example, when they were doing well in the spring split, or like earlier in the year, I should say winter split, when we look at them this year, a lot of their success came by basically Elyoya being the tip of the spear. So it's like, one thing I will give them credit for is like, those rookies knew not to make plays when Elyoya wasn't there. Sure. It's like Elyoya dictated the pace of the early game. Everybody played around him. He decided where to go. He decided where the kills were going to happen. He was playing Vi and Xin Zhao and like making picks and like playing aggressively and skirmishing in these early games. And that was a win condition to get them ahead early. You know what meta I don't think suits them very well? AP farming with your jungle where that guy isn't doing as much on the map. I also think
you remember the whole way that they played in that first split was they always just got the bot lane rolling.
Yep.
Now that doesn't happen, mate. And so that's why I said there's no win condition. Like, all the players have withered on the vine, mate. Like, there's almost no one left who's like in good form, who can be played through. Like even when the super guy has a good game, it's like disconnected from the team, mate. They can't win off it.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought Supa was that good. Like, if anything,
He's okay. He's just
like
okay, mate.
Mirwin and Alvaro were I think, the more interesting
Sure.
parts of this team. But I don't even really like their meta read right now. If we're looking at it, like, why are, and when they're playing SK, why are we playing the brand in the jungle? I don't know what's going on, because there've been like brand bans and stuff that have been coming through in LEC. But if you look at most other regions, you just realize, like, where is the Karthus? Where is the Zyra? These picks are, I think, just better. Diana's been appearing in LPL as well, and SK's picking up on that with Yzma. But, it just feels that there is no agency around this team anymore. And sure, Mirwin has a big champion pool, but is flexing Sejuani into the top lane in this meta really the play here, so we can get this brand jungle, but we also don't have a pushing lane, so how is the brand going to farm or make plays on the map? And they're, SK's playing an all-in dive composition with Diana, Skarner, and Kai'Sa and Leona. And so, like, what is this brand going to do? Like, their backline doesn't have sufficient peel to get, to peel for Zeri and Brand. It's like, I don't know, man. It seemed pretty easy kind of win condition to dive backline for SK, and they, Bad Lions hasn't done anything early. But this team that was so hyped that all the Spanish fans were just going mental about in winter underperformed in spring and is now literally probably going to get eliminated and is playing like absolute garbage here in summer.
It's the worst team. It's just the clear worst team. And as you said, Monty, that's no small feat, because at the moment, like, there should be like 5 teams trying to battle for last place. Like, but Bad Lions is just so far and away bad. It's like, it's sad, because think how the year's going to end. The year's going to end with one of the most nightmare sets of decisions for that general manager and that team. Like, I don't know what he does at this point in time, because the whole concept of the project, like, give El Yoya these rookies and his like mate who's the Spanish coach and this core that's you're gonna have to surely kick people. Like, I think you have to start over with this project. I think you pick El Yoya, 1 or 2 names, and you just start over.
Well, I would love to hear some of those fans who are complaining about Mad Lions' performance. It's like, oh, they always make the international competition and then shit the bed. Well, what about now? They blew up a roster that could at least make it to international competitions for this garbage.
Exactly. I wish they could be there and get shit on now, mate. They're a million miles from going there. Yeah, true.
So I know they were a meme before, but surely this is not better, right, guys? Surely this ain't it. Like, these are not, for the most part, a group of rookies. And like, even if they were to play, it feels like they're not even really playing their own style right now, because like, how are they getting advantages? Like, oh, Mirwin's playing top Akali, or like weird counter picks. That's kind of God too. It's like, this team is not the one that's going to win by playing standard meta.
Oh, no. It's actually sad that they're just irrelevant now. Like, they are just fucking completely irrelevant. And as you said as well, I think the most criminal thing isn't even losing, mate. It's that the 2 players, Merwin and Alvaro, bro, in winter, I would like sign a contract with those guys for 2 years. They look like they were going to be really good players in the LEC. Yeah. But both of them have it's just diminished. It just has diminished. They've regressed. So I think it's time for a shuffle or some sort of, you got to switch something up. You got to switch something up.
Yeah.
And by the way, as I said on Bast Time League Show, which I think is coming out today, forthcoming, the obvious joke to say about one certain player is this. I'll tell you who's absolutely shit out of luck, Monty. He's called Chovy. You know why? You're not Spanish, mate. Bad luck for you, bro. You ain't Spanish, so I'll tell you what, you may as well get the fucking bus timetable out, because you're going home at the end of this year. Like, that's the most obvious player you'll change, isn't it? Just some random guy. Like, I'm sorry, I'm changing you immediately for a better player. I just am. Oh, and also, did you see, just because obviously I like the hilarity, I don't know if you saw this, but did you see the most recent clown show thing from fucking Super a few weeks ago?
Probably.
You know, it's bad enough, Monty, that he previously has said like he's the best bot lane in the world and all that. A few weeks ago, he said that like he looked up to Deft and that he is better than Deft.
I mean, like, not like Deft's playing super well right now, but
man, it was only a few weeks ago. Deft did that insane fucking like break the ankles move and fucking like he's not a bomb though. He's not fucking super in the LEC though, is he? Like, come on, mate. Listen, no matter how low you and also the reason I think that one is egregious is because, bro, it's one thing if you picked like another great player who has ups and downs. Deft probably has the best flaw of any fucking great player in the history of this game of anyone. So, like, when has that guy ever been bad, by the way? At best, he was maybe, like, average for LCK. That's at his worst seasons. Like, this guy's always been a good player, mate. Like, fucking hell. You picked the wrong player to compare yourself to.
I mean, it was also funny that he says that and then gets absolutely styled on by Rahel in that 1v1 this week.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
When Rahel was sidestepping all of his Zeri Qs on Kaisa.
That was what I meant. Yeah, the Rahel one. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So
that was the super one we got all played. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That was
so,
hilarious.
I don't know. It was that game, I think, was very embarrassing for Mad Lions. And like for SK, I mean, this is a team that has just kind of incrementally been getting better. Like they've picked up a lot of pieces, you know, that other teams have identified or like have cast away. Like I know Niski wasn't cheap, but to get Niski and Irrelevant, right? Like when these options were available, they add them to the roster, and it's like they step by step slowly increase, their potency. Rahel and Luan have looked very good so far, and it feels like SK is just very patient, very good at evaluating players, selecting players that work well together within this roster. Yzma's still going to be questionable, but
still a rookie though. Still a rookie.
Yeah. You might trade him out later on, and at least they're good enough right now in kind of a bad LEC to be top of the table at 6-1. I mean, Fnatic, SK, BDS, and G2 have already guaranteed their spots for the next stage.
Even though they might end up obviously just fucking wrecking me at the end and pulling the stool out for me as I go to sit down, I'm just actually low key because I'm so bored of that narrative with Fnatic and BDS. I hope SK can just like sneak at the end and become second best because I actually do like that team. I actually think it's like a canny little squad of people.
It's fun to watch. And it would be at least something different than what we've seen in a long time. So I like that element of it.
The problem is though, I get torn on that one because I can't tell Monty. Like, here's the toughest thing about BDS is this is what it's a bit like the example of how if you only compared T1 last year to JDG, it sounds like we're shitting on T1 because you're forcing us to point out what they are not. But, you know, I've always pointed out, I love the way T1 plays fundamentally with their players. Like, I think it's a really interesting style of play. I think it will always work in certain metas. Similar with BDS. Like, I might talk down individual players in BDS. Dude, I actually like that Europe has a team that plays real fucking league and actually, like, punishes mistakes and doesn't just do boneheaded errors all over the place. I think that's good. My problem is just that, like, on the one hand, like, I like that. It's just that it's a bit like Team Liquid in LCS. I just don't believe when you go internationally, you haven't got the firepower to do it, as it were. Like, this is like the analogy would be, it would be like being a boxer, Monty, who's really good tactically and he doesn't make like silly mistakes and he has decent defense, but he doesn't have any punching power. He can't knock them out. The problem with that is like you can enjoy like when he's against someone of his level, but if he goes against someone who's like the champion, you can't have the hope he's going to win. You know what I mean? Whereas like I'll say this about Fnatic all day long. I think Fnatic has all sorts of fundamental problems in how they play the game, but at least they got the firepower, mate. Like they can like Humanoid can give you a knockout punch. You can Razork and Humanoid can get it done in a BO1. You know they can get you a win or two.
Right. I think that's the issue with BDS is like, okay, well, you look at them and you're like, wow, Nuke is pretty good. Like, is Nuke good enough to go against international mids?
For sure.
And, you know, the other thing about BDS is that unlike teams like G2, they play very standard. They're not innovative in any way, shape, or form. Like, they are very good at adapting themselves to a meta and finding a good pool of champions that this group of players can play in that meta. And, you know, shout out to Ice. Ice and Labrov have been having a great season so far.
Yeah.
Like, Ice has been very good, and he's been stepping into that carry role. We talked about this earlier this year. What was Ice doing? Facilitating, engaging on 80 carries. Ashe, Jhin, these kind of Varus, these kind of champions every game. Now it's like Jinx and Zeri, and he is actually delivering in these matches. So it's much more return to the crown shot style, front to back team fighting, based around 80 carry play, like hyper carries in the late game. Labrov is also doing very well. But are we really thinking that like Nuke and Adam are the best solo laners that this team could possibly be fielding on an individual level? Like, Adam's last international performance at Worlds was fucking disastrous. Like, once you guys got out of the play and meme phase, he was terrible. He was terrible. His champion pool was a massive liability. Nuke has a good champion pool, but like, are we going to really pretend that Larson wouldn't be an upgrade on this roster? You know what I mean?
That's why the killer factor is this. The reason why they won't be able to replicate what they do in LEC if they go to Worlds, because it's looking like they're going to go to Worlds right now of the three teams. The reason why you can't believe they'll do it, Monty, is, bro, they sometimes struggle to lane in LEC, some of these players. What are you going to do when you play Gen.G? Like, they're just good. But like you're going to be in a hole before you ever get to the point in the game you can do something. Like it's going to be really tough against these super team rosters, mate. It's going to be really hard. In fact, I'd even wonder, quite frankly, people might meme on people like Top Esports, dude. I think Top Esports would fucking cook fucking BDS.
Oh yeah,
you talking about? They would cook them, mate.
I mean, we'll see it. It's coming. Like BDS has very solid fundamentals, and BDS is just not a team that's going to be built for international success. And that's okay. Like, if they are able to, with this roster, foster a very good read on the meta and sense of teamwork that's going to repeatedly get you to international events, and that's the expectation, and you don't want to spend a fuck ton of money, then this roster is going to do it for you. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't really have they can't really have higher ambitions, in my opinion.
The problem is, though, Monty, you already did it there. No one wants to hear this, because when it's BDS, people think of like the players have been there a long time. Some of them have the whole connection. We speak French and all that jazz with the org. But I'm with you, Monty. Here's what makes BDS exciting. Bro, if you actually did drop in like a really sick mid laner, like you're saying, like if you got like Larson, you got him in peak 4, now that'd be spicy. By the way, what about them if they had an skill or something? That would be a spicy team right there, man. Now you got my interest and my attention, like that fucking Leonardo DiCaprio meme or whatever. Now I'd be fucking really interested to see you play. Just give me 1 star extra, and then we can cook. Because by the way, you can even keep Adam. I'm fine with Adam as long as you have the other stars. Because I'm with you. It can't only be ice versus the world when we go international, guys. Like it can't.
Well, it's also if you literally just do a thought experiment here, and you're like, would you rather see Razork and Humanoid in this roster or Sheo and Nuke? You'd be crazy. You'd be crazy to like swap out Sheo and Nuke here.
That would even be a fire roster if you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't know who does the shot calling on this roster. Maybe that would destroy, their good macro that we typically see in games. But I don't think it's Sheo doing that.
I get the sense it's like Labrov personally, but that's just my vibe.
Yeah. I don't know. So maybe you strip out. But like, honestly, like if you I don't even think, and I've never thought that Razork and Humanoid work very well with each other. That's just like,
they don't still.
Can you imagine? I'm really saying, like, could you imagine just taking those Fnatic players and putting them in there? Sure. Because, Fnatic, if anything, is being dragged down. Oscar Inan has a high ceiling, but a very low floor. Like, he could definitely throw you games. And Noah's not great, man. Noah's not a great AD carry. So I think
this last week of LEC shows you why I can't believe in Fnatic as well. Because, mate, if Razork doesn't have a good game, this team just loses straight up. Like he is because I do think, by the way, in my opinion, not even just jungler, I think he's like a top 3 player in the LEC. Forget jungler. Like he's just really good now. But if he ever has a game where he's just not feeling it, he passes wrong, fucks up a couple of times, it's over. You just lose the game, mate. Like
it's also, I think Fnatic fans will be disappointed to see this because Noah was gifted a triple kill in the early game by a terrible dive from G2.
Yep.
You know what you have to do when you get that gift? Fucking carry the game.
Yep.
And it's like this is the same issue that I had with D plus Kia and Kana when he was on that roster, where it's like it doesn't matter how hard Kana gets fed because Kana's not the guy who's going to carry the game with those resources. And you may have your opinions about players like Aiming who get a lot of resources. Aiming can absolutely throw the game, but he can also carry the fuck out of that game.
Yes.
But he's a variable player. But it feels like it's okay. Noah gets the resources, and then you lose anyway. Then you lose anyway. Like he's not the guy to step up and be the hero when he needs to be, and that's a pretty huge problem. You can't throw away advantages like that. That's ridiculous.
Also, by the way, since you'll appreciate it, I'll reference this detail. Mate, did you see when the G2 Fnatic match happened, where on screen they showed the record of caps against Fnatic?
No, I didn't see it. What was it?
It was something like he won 42 games and lost 9 or something insane like that.
I believe.
Remember, this is when Fnatic was like the second best team most of that time. Like that is actually mental, mate. Because in your brain you think, in your brain you think it's going to be like he's got 60% win rate or something. Like, bro, 42 wins and 9 losses. Like that is inconceivable. That's so fucking sick. The guy is just like fucking the Kwisatz Haderach of Europe, and it's insane.
It's actually crazy.
And imagine being Sam Matthews and seeing that graphic flash on screen when he used to be your guy, dude. Remember, you were in the World's Finals. You're like, right, all we have to do now is re-sign Caps, and then it's all good. He leaves and then just runs the whole league for the next like half a decade.
Not only that,
your main rival. Oh, that hurt so badly.
Wins an MSI. Gets back to the World Finals.
Oh, it's so gross, isn't it? I know. And also, by the way, that's how mad what Caps did and how Carlos and G2 fucked Fnatic. We all even forget that 2018 run, which at the time was hailed at the best run ever from the West, because the next year just like deleted it. No one gives a shit about the Fnatic now. No one cares. It's so gross, isn't it? Like, it's so gross. I actually feel bad for them, low-key. You know?
It is almost inconceivable that they could just be whipped this badly over the last 5 years.
Here's the thing: you'd think they'd have had one split where it came together and they just won, or like when G2 lost to Rogue when the finals just weren't quite as good that one time. You'd think that would have happened eventually, but it just doesn't somehow. It's fucking mad. And I'll annoy people even more by just pointing out this one detail, because he was the guest, by the way, on Best Damn League Show, so he told me this. Well, technically, if you remember, in spring 2022 in the upper bracket, actually, Fnatic did beat G2, if you remember, because they did the lower bracket run where Caps played the Ari, right? So Yamato pointed out, that means he even counts for like half of the losses against the half of the wins of Fnatic against G2, just Yamato, isn't it? So if you all hate Yamato, he is the fucking counter. So all I'm saying, just get him in there. Shout out Yamato. Fire now, of course. Now, of course. But here's the good news. Now that he got fired, he gets to appear on Best Damn League Show as a guest. So, it sucks for him, but it's great for us. Great for the LFN network. We love it.
And maybe other LFN content in the future, guys. Just put that out there too. If you guys like Yamato, I think you're going to see some more of him, not just as a guest. So Carbine Corp too. Like, it is especially funny because obviously Yamato probably would have pushed for some of these changes, and now the changes that he couldn't get, probably would replace Targamas as well, have come through. And the result is, it doesn't look a whole hell of a lot better. They picked up a Kana that nobody in Korea or China really wanted. I will say the Vladi guy looks okay so far,
That's a good pickup. That's a good one. And by the way, it's inferred that he's probably going to be there for he's the guy they're going to keep for next year and then put it with the Calist guy and stuff. It's inferred that that's the one they're building around is Vladdy. The others, I think, are just there for them. Like, this is just Closer taking a fucking pit stop here. There's no way this guy's in, surely. Come on.
Well, why did we even get rid of Bo? He was one of the only guys on the teams that was talking alongside
my point that I made was this. Think of the strengths of Closer. Isn't he just the worst version of Bo, except he maybe speaks better English? Like, you didn't even get any of the macro shit, you lunatic. That's the one thing Bo couldn't do was the macro. What are we doing?
And at least he was
even
trying.
In that game they won, all he did is just basically feed the bot lane and get upset ahead. Like, yeah, that's what Bo can do too. Like, what are we doing here? What a world. What a world.
And it's not like Carbine Corp have looked like they deserve their wins either.
Nah, they're
it's
not
like
great, mate.
It's like they fluked their way to 3 wins. So I don't know. It just feels bad when these giant fan bases like Carbine Corp and Mad Lions, and they have all the fanfare coming in, and then they just completely shit the bed, and we have to deal with a team like fucking BDS or SK Gaming that, as far as I can tell, do not have fan bases at the top of the table.
I have to say, by the way, bear in mind, I used to work for them. That is one thing I do find mildly underwhelming. Because if people don't know, it's not that SK Gaming doesn't do anything. I actually know that girl, Lara, the cosplay person who works for SK, who did loads of the content stuff. She's tried to do loads of content around the players. The thing is, though, they just tend to do sort of almost like what female fans who are stans of K-pop want Monty. They do sort of the cutesy stuff and the who are you and silly skits. Like, I agree with you, though. The one thing they've failed on that team with is, both of them in a way, is SK with their history. You should actually be trying to build yourself as like a legendary org and do that sort of like we're a TSM and Cloud9. And by the way, the BDS one, the reason why that one's criminal is I feel like you're just relying on we have fans who are like French speaking. Like, I would actually, for real, brand yourself as like we're the Cerebral team or we're the LCK team village. I'd do some shit like that because I agree with you. Like, the brand is not very strong on these, even though like BDS is a really good team. Think how good they've been for the last year and a half. Now they're pretty fucking. They're a top. They deserve that status of being a but. They haven't really come with a strong identity. I think you got to communicate that a bit better.
Yeah, I think they do have some level of French fans, even though they're a Belgian org. Because
even then, though, they get cocked by Carbine Corp.
Yeah,
Think how dumb this is, Monty. Like, Their team is way better than Karmine Corp, but Karmine Corp has all the fans, so it's why the one thing you can't say about Karmine Corp, they have obviously nailed the fucking branding bit. Like, they've killed that part. That's the one part they've done a 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah. Helps to have the big streamers behind them. On the content front, too, I do want to just talk about LCS, because the content that's been coming out of LCS, I think has actually been really good.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said, like, oh, the content from LEC has been bad. It has. Yeah, they fired all their people, guys, and like Shaq.
There's a piece the other day. I don't know if you saw it. It was just the other day that I thought was fucking hilarious, where they actually did. It was like Jack with fucking Inspired and Jensen. Yes. That was hilarious. That was actually fire. I enjoyed that, man. That was good. Same with the scene where Dignitas won and they were doing that part. That was great.
The interview that Dignitas did as a team after their win against 100 Thieves was very fun this last week. And I do hope, because this is a great approach, and I think that their whole branding about like the Talk Your Split and the promo video they did and the pros like after show interviews / roundtables and the, you know, the 1v1 between, you know, with Inspired and Jensen was all really good content. And
I enjoyed it.
But it does require the buy-in of the players. And right now the players look like they're buying in, but I really hope that the players like maintain that energy, because I know how pro players work, and it may be exciting now, but in a year when you're on your 10th, like, you know, film shoot for this shit, they tend to start complaining. So I hope that they remember that this is actually energy that feels like it can bring life back into the LCS and get people to give a shit.
It actually does, like, for real. This is actually having, no joke, like a Drive to Survive effect where it makes you more interested to watch the game. Like, this is why I told people, it's so weird it was Liquid that were like complaining about the trash talk. Bro, isn't that the best thing about APA isn't even how he plays mid lane. It's that he actually's brought this dynamic where, you know, he's going to say some shit in the world, and people are going to get tilted, and then they're going to fucking block him, and then when he wins, he's going to trash talk. That makes it weird. Even if you don't like Team Liquid, it makes it way more spicy to watch. You want to see, is someone going to shut this guy up, or is he going to trash talk them? By the way, I actually just checked, because I was just looking on the website while you were talking. And you know, nowadays, we're having that effect a bit like Dom. We're actually quite a few people watch on like the YouTube live stream now, because obviously one of the things that's improved for our YouTube is discovery, because obviously your homepage tends to just recommend it, since we're all watching all the videos, right? So we're all getting the algo recommended it. And I happened to see a random comment in the chat I want to give you, Monty. It's a gift to you, because only you would appreciate this. It just goes, this is how you know this guy's had the equivalent in LFN terms of his first beer. Because he goes in the chat, he goes, how are they smug about everything? It's like, my friend, there's 10 years of material for you to learn the answer to that question. That is absolutely something you can learn if you choose to. How are we so smug? Indeed.
Hundreds of episodes of being right.
And you think that's a diss? I take that as a compliment. We want that as our branding. Exactly. I always thought yours was actually the best before they hid likes, where the only tweet, because me and Monty never ever liked tweets, the only tweet Monty ever liked was one where it was some person like actually trying to be smug and talking back to Monty, and I guess all that matters is being right, and you were like, yes, that is right. That was like the one like tweet you had for like 10 years.
Ever.
Right?
Yeah.
It was good. It was legit. I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, what's more important than being right? I'm like, yes.
Yeah, it was something like that. Exactly. Yes, exactly. It was also well phrased, to be fair. It was quite a good line. But yes, in case you don't know, you can also watch this show live on YouTube, and obviously you can rewind it.
I mean, most people do these days. Our YouTube viewership is much higher. So, yep. Anyway. Let's talk about LCS a little bit, because we had another fun week of, like, as good as the content has been and as compelling I think as the product is, and like how likable some of the teams are. Holy moly, Thorin, the level of play is still just
some clown shit going
awful.
On. Like, spoiler, the one that really does kill me inside is NRG, mate, because like they barely changed the roster from the one that everyone hyped the fuck out of at Worlds. Like, guys, this team isn't even going to be at the next Worlds. This is really bad. They're actually just like,
they're unbelievably
15%
bad.
of the team they were. It's insane, isn't it? I know.
I think clearly it's like a meta problem. Like, God knows nobody wants to see Palafox play Yone. You know what I mean? Like, did you sign up for contracts on Karthus and Palafox on Yone? Hell no, you did not, right? You signed up for contracts on Viego and Palafox on Orianna.
obviously you put contracts on Elise in and give him a meta where he can play. Yeah, he'll have a pop-off game. That's one thing I did find out was weird about when people hyped NRG at Worlds. It's like, are we really pretending like contracts has just ascended and is the god jungler now? Like, this is one of the most streaky junglers probably ever in the LCS. Like, by the way, he's on the right sort of team. He should be on sort of a mid-table team and, you know, give you an occasional win condition. But like, people definitely took they took the highest point of the arc, the zenith, Monty, and they acted like that was the new normal level, and it never was. Come on, it never was, guys. Come on.
Of course
this is bad now. Like, remember, the reason why they're also in trouble, Monty, is because the league has got way too much parity now. Like, you don't get to just chill as like a third or fourth. They're going to be like one of the worst teams at this rate. They're going to be one of the worst teams.
What I think is so funny, though, and I'm really glad you brought up NRG, because honestly, the other team that should be embarrassed is FlyQuest for playing this horrible series against NRG. Yep. And I was just laughing my ass off on my stream while I was VOD reviewing this, because game 2, Inspired plays Karthus. You're like, oh, yeah, you know, farming jungler for Inspired. Like, I'm feeling great about this. And they nearly come back and win this game despite being in a deficit the entire time. But I was just laughing because Inspired was out there calling Jensen vegan. And this guy, I think, was trying his hardest to never trigger Karthus passive. It's like, should I flash into this Baron pit? No, I'm just gonna, like, he was flashing out of fights and then dying anyway, and then not being in range to actually hit his abilities post death with his passive. Like, it was crazy. Like, he refused to flash into the enemy team. Like, if he flashed in some of those team fights with how powerful and far ahead he was, they probably win that game. But instead, he's like, well, I'm low HP. Time for me to go. And then he would just die anyway. And then and a lot of times he didn't have ult. So he would just stand there doing nothing instead of doing like a ton of damage with a bunch of Qs. It was very funny.
Obviously, despite what losers with their karma might think, obviously Reddit posts are neither here nor there, Monty, will be forgotten forever and no one will ever give a shit. So I'll repeat it here. It's not my material. It was the top post on Reddit. But I thought the funniest was someone did have a banger line, Monty, where they said, after like an interview or something, they said, well, we know that Inspired isn't vegan because he, you know, something like he stays eating all those scapegoats, which is pretty good. That's actually pretty good. That's a bar. I'll give you that. That's a bar. That's not bad. That's pretty good. That's legit. I like that. That's a good one.
Like, if you're FlyQuest and you have Inspired and this is the way that you're playing the game and you're losing to NRG in this state, like, come on, man, that is terrible. And then also, I mean, on top of that, there were also just FlyQuest hasn't cleaned up their play at all, because we had the same kind of issues that we had last split, which is that Masu and Busio, like, they're, for example, in game 2, that game I was just talking about, there was an incredible early game jungle lead for Inspired. Blippo's like harassing them. He's taking out contract Zyra plants in the topside jungle. Inspired gets the opportunity to basically 3-quadrant him as a result, because Inspired takes blue. They're playing on red side. Inspired takes blue, walks into the red side jungler. Contract's been delayed. So he just goes ahead and steals red, right? And you're like, wow. Inspired, you know, in the farming jungler AP matchup, this guy's super far ahead. And then you know what happens? Fucking Masu and Busio just die in the bot side to contracts, a guy who has nowhere on the map to go after he takes Scuttle Crab because he has no camps because Inspired took them. I call this on my stream. I say he's an unemployed jungler. He doesn't have a job. And when junglers are unemployed, they become very dangerous and they end up in your lane. And so you know he's unemployed because Inspired and Bwipo just had this great level 1 to get you this advantage. And then Masu and Busio just die in the most clown fiesta way possible. And they get killed by contracts, which then gives him the gold and XP he was denied. And it's like, you guys are like blaming Inspired. I mean, Inspired did play badly in the team fights, but like Bwipo and Inspired did everything they could to get a huge advantage, and it just gets thrown down the shitter by this bot lane. And they did this all the time in spring, by the way. The number of games that Inspired had to do ludicrous triage on in the early game because of whoopsies that would happen in bot. And it's like, they can't hold the W. It's like, you guys don't all in, play safe, and just fucking don't die and let Daddy Inspired just farm out and carry this game. But it was a terrible game by FlyQuest. And it really doesn't look like, you know, I don't think that Quad has been inspiring, right, compared to Jensen. He hasn't really shown that he is the guy, as it were. first couple of games, so we can give him some time, but he does
the spicy thing, of course, is they play each other next, mate. The timing on that's perfect, by the way. That's going to be a spicy game.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like it doesn't feel great to watch FlyQuest right now, and I do not have a lot of hope for this roster because the same mistakes keep getting made, and the bot lane shouldn't be doing this still, and Inspired sure as hell shouldn't be playing Karthus in team fights like this. So it's like they can't, all players on FlyQuest can't have a good game at the same time. That's actually just fucking impossible for some reason.
Well, the good news is if you are a Jensen fan, they can't blame Jensen anymore. I bet they're like, oh, the fucking oh shit, he isn't there. It's just us now. Oh god. Yeah, the responsibility in it, accountability.
And it's the same shit with Cloud9. It's like Cloud9 hasn't been too inspiring either, right? Thanatos hasn't been joined up with the team. Their shot calling still looks incredibly suspicious. The only team that I think actually looks decent is Liquid, and I guess Dignitas had a good game this week, but I don't rate 100 Thieves very highly. So
I'm just going to say this now, Monty. I actually think the problem with Cloud9, I'm getting mad fucking flashbacks to the Summit era, mate, where a guy was a monster individual top laner, but they could never make it work in the team. He couldn't connect up properly. It didn't matter that you won that. You can't just pick connect in every game. Like, this guy's giving me flashbacks of that. So I hope it's not going to be like that. Cause I actually want this team to develop. It can't only be the players. It can't only be punching power. We've got to see something more.
Yeah. I mean, look, Cloud9 is, I think, the biggest bummer. Because the hope that we had within this team, and we know that a lot of these players could in theory compete on the international stage or have competed on the international stage in the past with at least glimmers of hope, but the teamwork and the shot calling just isn't there, and the engages, and none of that shit has really been fixed. They still look incredibly indecisive. They're either too decisive on the bad plays and they're indecisive on the opportunities to make good plays. But, maybe Dignitas can come back. I mean, Sven has looked surprisingly good for a player who hasn't been playing that position in a long time.
But the thing with him, Monty, is the one thing you always have to give credit to Sven for. He's always going to put in the hours. This guy's got a true work ethic. It's one of the things I really respect about him. So I imagine he grinded like a motherfucker. He's got himself back into shape. Fair play. Also just shows what we were talking about last week. Look, at his peak, yes, there have been some famous ints or moments he let himself down. What a fantastic career, though. The guy's been playing remember, he's almost played 10 years now. Origin was 2015, guys. That's a very long career.
Yeah, and
he's still relevant.
He made semis at Worlds that year, too.
Yeah. And he's in this team. They could challenge for the last world spot. They could be the third team from it. It's not impossible. So, yeah, I think he's had a very impressive... that's an example of a player, Monty, where I don't want people to get cynical and go, why are you bringing washed players back? Get this young rookie player. The rookie player probably wouldn't play better than this. Let's just be fair. This guy's good, and he's got the experience.
I mean, I think this next week's going to be very telling because, like you said, that FlyQuest versus Dignitas game may be the battle for third place ultimately because, even with Cloud9's flaws, they did beat Dignitas. And with Team Liquid looking much better than most of the other rosters within this league, I think, that the FlyQuest Dignitas is going to be hugely consequential on the playoff race and possibly who actually goes to Worlds. 100 Thieves sucks, though. That team is terrible.
100 Thieves is garbage.
I feel bad saying that because I know people are hyped on them because Sniper and Quid have been exciting, but it's just win lane and then slowly lose the game via macro mistakes. And people have a better read on how to deal with the members of 100 Thieves right now, but their macro is still terrible. Ayla is still so bad.
I will invoke my passive ability in esports by saying something I think is truthful analysis, but that'll hurt people's feelings. I'm just going to say this right now. The player that bombs me out at 100 Thieves is why is River in this team? So you ready for the statement that'll hurt everyone's feelings? You all worship Blabber. Mate, you put River on Cloud9. Now we're talking. I'll take that deal all day. That guy actually understands League of Legends, mate. He's not just some got hands, hands. Mate, LPL's hands all day long. Mate, LPL's when you have a threesome, it's fucking, we're talking about that's the greatest hand job of all time. Like, mate, you need more than that. The River guy actually showed me smartsies last few years. He has a good mind for the game. Like, but the team he's on has no fucking pieces to work with. They're garbage. Like, that team got way worse from last split. It's sad. Way worse.
It's another one where like people got hyped about Sniper because of the solo kills and the counter picks and the top lane champion pool and him making top lane look exciting.
Yeah, it was
but
hype.
He has no map awareness or sense of macro or ability to use teleport, which it turns out are very important skills for a top laner to have. And he can't coordinate with his team. So, I mean, it's cool that he can get a kill on like a cool kill on Olaf in lane, but that is not going to necessarily win you the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So I am not hyped on 100 Thieves. Like their macro has been non-existent. I also am just disappointed in Shopify.
Well, Monty, here's the obvious angle we didn't do because we'll do it more next week. But in light of what you just said about FlyQuest, well, the obvious thing to say is, Monty, you know, in about a week they're going to be playing G2.
Oh, they're going to get clapped.
Fucking hell, that's going to be bad. That's going to be rough, mate.
They're going to get clapped. I also will say my big disappointment has been Shopify Rebellion because they were actually a fun bottom team to watch, and now they've just lost all their pizzazz. Man. They're just depressing. Yeah. I never liked Fake God as a player, but you know, you think, they got Tomio now, and Insanity had all those weird picks, and like they were fun and quirky, and like you felt like they could pull off some upsets from time to time. Well, no, not anymore. I guess that era is over.
Mate, Fake God, he's just a jobber. He's just the guy where it's like when you haven't got your roster yet, you're like, you know what, let's put Fake God in at top till we get our top laner. Like, he's just been like every team, it feels like as well. Like, he's had to be in this team 1 million times, so you know, whatever. It's all good.
No. I mean,
100 Thieves, all that shit. EG, everything.
He's got to go.
C9, it was not EG, C9, okay.
So I think that'll wrap up LCS. I mean, there are going to be some fun matches to talk about. Like you said, the FlyQuest versus Dignitas one is going to be pretty spicy this next week. That's certainly the premier match that's going to be happening this week.
Fake God is 24 years old, Monty. He's not even, there's not even like, but he's a prospect. He's not. Bro, no, this like Koreans are done by they're like 24. What are you talking about? Like, it's over for him. It's over. He had a chance.
I mean, to put this in perspective, everyone was complaining, oh, man, Spica's on Dignitas now. Oh, what about XU? Spica's 23, guys. And you're not complaining about fucking Fake God. Spica, still very young. All right, so we'll talk more about LCS. Do you have any brief thoughts on... We're kind of waiting for the good matches in LPL, but Anyone's Legend continues to roll surprisingly. Yep. Weibo looks absolutely awful. Xiaohu is playing miserably at the moment, and that is highly mysterious given this guy's pedigree and career.
And the roster moves, like that roster looked like it got the shot in the arm and they're going to get good. Like, actually, it's fucking bad right now. It's really depressing. And also, we pointed this out in the past, they were supposed to have like an easy group, and it's actually turned out that the group's a nightmare because both Anyone's Legend and Ultra Prime are actually like fucking cooking people. So it's fucking rough, mate. Yeah, that's wild that they're going to be so bad. I mean, they're going to be in that shitter group. They're going to be in that rubbish B group, aren't they? Or whatever it's called.
And to remind you guys, what happens is that if you get into the A group, you actually have a chance to get a, playoff buys, a deep berth in the gauntlet. If you get into the B group, your best outcome is play a best of 5 to qualify for the bottom of the playoffs. So it is crazy hard to get to Worlds or any kind of deep playoff run if you are in Group B. And they shouldn't be in there. There's even 3 spots because they're in the 5-team group. And we are heading towards some really funny results. And if you guys want to see it, what is going to be hilarious is that IG and Weibo play each other in the very last match of summer placements. And that is going to be a dumpster fire. But both of those teams are going to really want to win that game because it might mean the opportunity to actually get into Group A. So it will be potentially quite funny. Depending on if Ultra Prime loses to Ninjas in Pajamas or not. So just things to look for there. But Anyone's Legend, Tabe, man, I don't know how this guy keeps working his magic on these rosters. It's like crazy.
The saying that you have in sports is this guy is going to be the ultimate floor raiser. You know that term where it's like he just joins a team and they just like the average level just keeps going up. Maybe they don't always hit the absolute top, but they go up immediately, don't they?
Well, I think what's impressive is like Shanks is a known quantity. He is a player that
was
has been
already
around.
someone who was decent before. Yeah,
But he had been around for a long time, and he's a control mage player, and all of a sudden now he's a very good Yone player. Like, what the fuck did Tabe do to this guy?
Sure.
How come he wasn't playing like this before? Krako's not the best. Krako's probably the worst player on this team, but even then, his floor seems to have been raised, as you point out, significantly. He's making a lot fewer stupid mistakes. Ale, who's a player who has been hyped up in the past, like did look good in his stint in LNG a couple of years ago.
And on EDG, he was pretty good too.
Yep. So, and now he's back and doing well. Kyle is a player who, on the Live Sandbox roster with Krako, was playing like second fiddle to Prince, who is the superstar of that roster. Now Kyle looks really good on this team.
And the detail people always forget, Monty. They always forget this detail. Is the ADC Hope is an LPL champion. He used to play for Gen.G. People don't know that. He used to be Hope and Missing played on that team. Like,
right, yeah.
This lineup's actually way better than you think once you now see it, obviously in play, but also you start to, like you say, you build the story. It's actually like not a bad little group of players. They've done a good job GMing this squad, mate.
I mean, they shouldn't be like as good as they are, though, because the thing about anyone's legend and why people are hyped up about them is they're actually passing the eye test too. They play a lot of different compositions. They play out different win conditions well. Their macros like really quite clean. They're my favorite team to watch in the LPL right now. They're really fun. So if you guys haven't been watching those Anyone's Legends games, like I would encourage you to do so. They've been good, but you have to wait to the next phase now, because they're done with their actual matches for this phase.
Yeah,
but in
that's
Group
a good
A,
thing. Now you just get to see them face the murderous row of all the good teams. Yeah,
right. I mean, and that's the question: like, are they going to be able to hang with Top or BLG or JDG, right, within the next phase? And we're going to see all of those matchups. So it's going to be really fun. I mean, that is one thing. Like, you don't even have to understand the LPL format. All you have to know is there's going to be a bunch of banger matches happening because of the format, and watch those matches, right? JDG is looking like this is going to be more and more of a roster, like a meta rather, that's good for JDG. Kanavi on carry junglers, Ruler back on what, like Zeri, Ashe, Ezreal, these are some of his all-time great champions. Zaya, you know, Kaisa, these champions, all huge Ruler picks that are going to look, you know, even better as time goes on and the patches go on for JDG. They started the season with Flandre and have now kind of switched over to Sheer once again. I'm not really sure what causes them to switch their top laners, but they kind of go with the hot hand, it seems, at the time, and like Sheer has been it in the last couple of matches. So he's a very exciting, I think, rookie player. He played really well.
He's good.
You know, for a guy who came in pretty late in the spring split and doesn't have that many matches under his belt. So it's fun. I think JDG...
And obviously has that youthful quality to him, Monty, you know, the innocence of youth, as it were. Some would say he feels almost younger than his years in some ways. Right? Yeah. It's just a very raw...
I don't know what you're talking about. It says he's 18 years old.
All right. Well, if the birth certificate says it, then that's all Ali you need to see. So game on. Game on.
You know, it says he's 18 years old, but I have a feeling that maybe Dr. Disrespect would be sliding into his DMs. Okay. So I think you know, Sheer, if you see him on stage, maybe not quite there, but a very good and I think promising rookie player.
So I think my joke was pretty good on Twitter, that essentially esports right now, and then I just linked the song George Michael, Careless Whisper. You know, just saying.
That's good.
On the nose, a little bit on the nose there, isn't it? You know,
that's good. But yeah, so you know, BLG. If you guys haven't been watching, like Knight doesn't look like he's in top form right now. Is that the meta? Is it the fact that this is the placements? You know what I mean? How much do they care? They're still undefeated. Also, at in the their end of the
group,
day.
You feel like they don't give a shit about that group. There's no one in that group's going to beat them. You know what I mean? Like, nothing to worry about there.
They're already 5-0. They've already qualified for Group A. I mean, Top, JDG, and BLG are all undefeated in best of threes. BLG and JDG have one more match to go. Top is done, 6-0. Sweep completed. They lost one game. So the Kings of the LPL still looking strong. And it just makes me so excited to actually see the Group A matches, because there's going to be so many good games in there. Especially because Anyone's Legend and NIP have also qualified now. So it's like 5 out of the 9 teams in that group, or 8 teams. No, 9 teams have been decided. And those are all good. Any combination of those teams playing each other is going to be fucking amazing to watch.
I do have one thing to say, though, which is when I see RNG can't win a fucking series, Monty, I just start thinking we need like Saving Private Ryan, some sort of evac mission for Ming. Bro, you can't go out like that. You're one of the best players ever from the LPL. You're in some shit team. That team has no hope whatsoever. Like, get out of that squad. I know you've been in RNG forever, but get out of that fucking team, mate. It's terrible.
He's just waiting. He's waiting for Milky Way to be brought back into the RNG fold next year. I will say,
as much as RNG sucks, Monty, I'll tell you what, if you were going to pair Milky Way with Ming, now maybe you've got my interest at that point, because that would be fucking spicy as like a jungle support duo. That's pretty skilled set of players.
If they wanted to spend too and put other good players around him, like that could absolutely be a huge team again. So if they want to bring that back and they want to take a stab at actually dropping some cash to get a good roster, could be very successful for them.
Also, how do we live in a world where anyone's legend is the hot prospect and RNG can't buy a win? Like, this fucking Twilight Zone. So what's going on today? What's this shit?
Stupid hat panda.
I know.
Their logo also, by the way, also just low key,
they have one of the worst brandings of all time as well. I know, it's so bad. It's so bad. Because not least because here's the thing, Monty. Even though I know it's not what it is, it's clearly some sort of like ninja slash pat. It looks also like, just looking at the way I'm explaining, guys, it looks a bit like someone's cooking a panda in a wok and they've put that thing on when you're like, you know, like you put the lid on.
Like,
it looks like they're crushing him. Get in there, you look on. Like,
it actually does, Thorin. That's actually
now
hilarious.
I've said it because of that little thing on the side. It does look like a dorky. Because it's only once you see that.
It's supposed to be a sword on his back, but it does look like a wok handle.
I've ruined it forever for you. No, he's supposed to be in like one of those like wushu movies or wuxia movies, isn't he? Of like a Ronin or something, or whatever they call it in China, obviously. But yeah, no, it just looks like he's in a wok, guys. Like from that handle. The handle's like
it just looks like the panda's been decapitated and his head's just in a wok.
And look at his face, Monty. He's not happy about it. He's getting cooked. He's literally getting cooked. His expression's like, "Oh, I'm getting cooked in a wok." Oh shit! Like, I love it.
I never would have seen that, but you're right. I absolutely can't unsee that now.
No, you'll never be able to now, mate.
And you know, the nice
not
thing
a great
about
logo, not a great one.
The nice thing about the LPL too is like we finish the summer placements, then we have Esports World Cup, and then we can just wait with anticipation for the next phase.
Yeah.
It actually just breaks up really nicely here, unlike most of the other leagues. Like LCK.
Oh, no, the saddest thing is, to stress it again, Monty, even though I've complained, I'm going to fucking enjoy watching the Esports World Cup. I'm glad that exists. Obviously not in the context of what it means, but I'm glad that the tournament exists. I'm glad
this international event, sure.
Yeah. Course. And also, unironically, I do want to know also, this is what has always sucked about League, is you go back and you watch the domestic league and you keep thinking, well, how would they match up internationally? Are they actually good, or is it their league? And the worst thing about League of Legends is you never get that answer except 2 times a year. And by the way, not even that, because only 2 teams go to MSI, right? So now you get like the CS thing of like, yeah, you're at the small tournament. Let's see you immediately at a big one. So, like, for example, people like top Esports. We'll see how good they are. Are they actually it's T1? By the way, here's the obvious angle we didn't even tease, which is the teams with the most to gain is people like T1 Monty. If you could win that tournament, way easier with BO3s, you can gain a lot of your stock back. Like, a lot of people will get hyped again. They'll rally around you. So there's a lot to play for the G2s and the T1s of the world, in my opinion. Top Esports is a lot to play for, yeah.
I hope they do, because it would make the rest of LCK a lot more exciting than it's looking right now.
Think how sexy the LCK finals becomes if T1 wins this event, mate. That would be fucking spicy.
Because you trade off MSI for the Esports World Cup, even though obviously it's not the same, but the narrative is.
Yeah, but there's the other thing. T1 fans they'll find a way to mentally. This should be part of it. I think this is Chovy denied Grand Slam? Question mark. Oh, you know what they're like. You know what they're like. No. You know what they're like. Yeah, I know. I love it.
They're just so hateful, you know.
I know. It's why low key. I'll do it back to you guys. If Chovy wins this event and then wins Worlds, I'll actually do a tweet that will tilt you off the face of the earth. I'll say, guys, Faker needs to complete his career resume. Chovy has won Worlds, MSI, the Esports World Cup, and LCK. Faker has only won Worlds. I'll do that, because if you notice, one of my biggest skills is not even to just say like your shit. It's just to do the one where it's like I just infer it, and that drives people way crazy. You know what I mean?
Then you have to go even further, and you have to say like, wow, we thought the Golden Road was impressive, but what about the Platinum Road or the Diamond Road of winning Esports World Cup as well. You know, it's not just that he got the golden road. It's that he did something that Faker will never do. The diamond road, whatever. It's stupid shit.
Yes. Well, it's like there was an episode back in the day of that comedy show, Modern Family, where in it, you know, the guy who's like the old Al Bundy actor. I can't remember the name of the actor in real life. You know, the one who's like a legendary comic actor from fucking Married with Children. You remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
The Al Bundy character. The guy who plays that, who's like the older, he's like the granddad type guy in Modern Family. There's an episode like that, Monty, where he goes to like a hotel and he books out like the best floor, which is like, you know, the platinum floor or whatever. But then the joke is when he gets there, there's still like a button above on the elevator. And like, what's that? And they're like, oh, sorry, sir, that's the platinum plus floor. So then he's, even though he's got like a mega thing, then he's like perma-triggered that he doesn't have whatever the platinum plus thing gets instead. It'd be like that. Like, that's what we're going to do, basically, to be actually really obnoxious. By the way, the best version, you realise, Monty, in a way, would be if it was the other way around and like Faker had one MSI, but then they won this and we're like, yeah, but Faker didn't get the Esports World Cup. That would also be obnoxious, you know, do it the other way. So either way, we're going to do it. It's all good.
What sounds more impressive, Thorin? Winning a mid-season invitational or a World Cup?
I also love as well that even though it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. I just love how much it triggers you that it's called an invitational.
It triggers me so hard.
Nobody is invited. Not a single person is invited. Me so hard. That's the most genius part about. By the way, guys, the Esports World Cup is by definition the mid-season invitational. Well, it isn't. It's the Esports World Cup. And then the Esports World Cup, this also tricky money, it's called the World Cup. Like everything about the naming is actually cancer. It's like the opposite. It's like double speak, you know, like Newspeak from fucking 1984. It's like that. It means the opposite of what it should.
It's even going further next year, Thorin, because when they move MSI, it is also it was never an invitational, and now it is not even mid-season anymore. It's just 2/3 of the way through the season.
Brilliant.
It does trigger me hugely that it's called an invitational, though. Like a lot.
Fair, though,
it's a big trigger.
I always thought the same thing about the LCS, though. So you've done a league, and it does have the word league in, but you mean league referring to the game League of Legends. It's the League Championship Series. It's not series. It's a league. It's just a league. But you've ended it again. You fucked it again. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you naming things inaccurately with very specific language? Why are you doing that?
I mean, because the truth is, Thorin, is that the people who designed these systems, this is just proof that they don't even know what formats are, because you're right. It's not a series. It should have been called the League Championship League.
Yeah, that would be a great name.
No, it's a terrible name because it's redundant.
But I mean, it's accurate. This is accurate, you know.
But it's like these people designed terrible formats. They're like, yes, let's call this tournament an invitational. Who's being invited? Oh, you don't get invited, you qualify it. How should we design this? 66 best of ones and 3 best of fives.
I know.
What the fuck, man?
The one I'll never get over ever is that one, Monty, in like 2022. The one where that first phase, G2 just had to play EG 4 times in BO1s. It was like, what are we even doing at this point in time? What even is this bollocks? You know what I mean? Like, that was so stupid, it was mental, man. Like, what?
So funny. All right. Well, I think that wraps up my takes on the domestic leagues for this week. You have any final topics before we go into viewer questions? All right. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, viewer questions for you.
Right. This is going to be the viewer questions portion. The way that you participate, if you indeed do, is to support us by subscribing to our Discord, the Last Nation Discord. If you do, there's a chance to ask these questions in. Now Monty will ask the questions. And if possible, we'll do them all, but you never know. It depends how long some of them are.
What are your current plans for world domination? And should you succeed, will you be tyrannizing the French? No, the French are harmless, man. They're too filled with ennui at this point in time. They're concerned in their own affairs. And if anything, French people, you know you tyrannize yourselves. The greatest tyranny of the French is being French and in France with other French people. So is there any reason to tyrannize them? Not really.
So I'll just throw out there, France does have either people don't know or care, or the best PR of almost any big country. Because you know one thing people don't ever talk about, Monty? You know France has like a mad sketchy colonial past where like they still like issue all like weird banknotes that they use in like African countries and stuff, mate. Like people just, the difference is because of the USA and Great Britain, people just don't go mental about that. So the joke is France is doing fine as they are, mate. They're still fucking running game on North Africa and all that shit. Just look into it. Like they're just not the US, so they don't get all the bad press. But anyway, what he means in an esports context, I assume, like, what are we going to do to like take over or some shit, right?
Just slowly increase the size of LFN. There you go.
The main thing basically is, as we told you in the past, is like the original plan for the company wasn't to be a startup. We were going to try and actually like get it fully funded and then pay everyone salaries and stuff. So that's still the end goal, because the key thing is the day we ever get like the big funding. By the way, if you don't know, that's what we turned down from the Saudis, the millions of dollars that you need to get things going and build out all the infrastructure and pay for people to work for his staff and then pay for people to do the shows. So at the moment, we're able to pay people something from sponsors, but literally the day we ever get funded, the whole thing changes. Like we'll literally be able to do like 10 times more stuff than we do now. Like all those things we teased on past episodes, do live show, that would all immediately become possible in a way. It's not as possible. Like it's not impossible now, but it's more like we'd have to really build towards that and save and spend. And it'd be a lot harder, basically.
We're more dependent on the sponsors to make that happen. Let's put it that way. I mean, the company's not
everyone
doing
is doing a great job so far. Everyone who's been buying stuff, it actually has helped. It has been a meaningful impact. It wasn't. We don't just say that for the sake of it.
No, you guys have helped a lot. What are your top 5 mafia movies? I don't know if I have any like weird takes on this.
I mean, the obvious ones, Godfather 1 and 2, aren't they immediately 2 of the top 5, you know, immediately. Casino's pretty good.
Goodfellas. Maybe a more fringe take for me might be Road to Perdition. I think that's a great movie.
That's a pretty good film. Especially, obviously, like the actors are mega. Paul Newman, fucking Tom
people
Hanks.
also think about like Italian mafia when they say mafia, but if we're just doing like organized crime, it opens up a lot more. Like Eastern Promises is not about.
I mean, technically, yeah. By the way, it depends how far you want to go. Technically, wouldn't that include like fucking Infernal Affairs then? Technically, that's like, what, like the fucking triad or some shit, isn't it? Whatever it is.
Infernal Affairs is great. So there's some for you.
By the way, the sleeper always that people forget about is everyone remembers Casino. The obvious one that goes hand in hand with that group is Donnie Brasco.
Sure,
that's the one to watch. Obviously, fucking Pacino, Depp. That's a pretty banging one.
What are some of the worst drop-offs you can remember in competitive LoL? Thinking along the lines of Armit going from winning LEC, winning games against Asian teams, international tournaments, to flunking out of NA and not even being the best top in TCL. I mean, there have been a bunch of these, right?
I'll tell you an obvious one. It's the one where Crown won Worlds as he'd already dropped off and was like semi-bomby, right? Like that guy went from a really insane individual player to like people think he was carried to a world championship.
I mean, think about a recent one would be Prince, right? This guy is super hyped up, hard carrying the shit out of a Live Sandbox team that, you know, had like Dove and Croco and fucking Kyle on it and Closer.
In the regular split of the first split for FlyQuest, he was also still cooking. He was like an MVP candidate. The problem was he just fell off in the playoffs, didn't they?
Yeah. And then, I mean, they also just almost went to Worlds, and if they had just won that game 5 versus DRX, they would have gone, right? And then he came to NA and was completely terrible, and then like was on WE and was still terrible, and then now God knows where he is, right? I'm an admin on a CS 1.6 server. It's easy to moderate toxicity on a local level as a community. I would like your thoughts on my take. The problem with doing that in LoL or CS2 is the lack of a local community and the need for a one-size-fits-all solution. We went quickly from the old model to this one without recognizing its new challenges. I mean, the problem is you just can't, the player bases are too big. Like, how do you have to automate it, right?
Here's my problem. I'm just going to say it because I'm so bored of this stupid discussion. You know what, Monty? Aside from in like the most like literal, you know, everyday, you sort of care about things sense. I don't care about toxicity when what they mean, Monty, because you know what they mean? They mean people typing and saying things. I don't care about that. Yeah. In fact, that's the world I come from, because that is what games were. They were like a proxy for, like, they were essentially like virtual Fight Club. That's what games were when you were young, right? So I don't care about people typing and talking. The toxicity I care about is fucking inting and soft inting and griefing. That's what I care. And you notice, by the way, that's never even on the table. People just care about what is said and what. Oh my God, he typed that I'm a bitch. Like, I care less about that than if he's soft inting the game and ruining it for all 4 people. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, I can't get as bothered because I sort of come from the Wild West of people talking shit. You mute them, you either mute them or you lean into it yourself. You know, you just go, fuck you, you can't, you know. You do that too. Come on. I agree. I think it's impossible to do what they want. If they want it to be like they want, like, but I shouldn't have to hear that. Well, that's like me saying on Twitter, I shouldn't have to read stupid opinions. Good luck fucking making it work like that, though. It's not logistically impossible. I've got to accept it eventually.
Yeah, I think talking to the gaming boomers about this, like, if anything, it's way less toxic than it used to be. I mean, the shit, like, I mean, it was in like the 90s and early 2000s, guys. This shit was like off the chain what you would hear on fucking Xbox Live.
It was wild, yeah.
You know, what people would be typing to each other in PC games. So it seems relatively mild, and it's just like, get the fuck over it to me. Not really a question, but in the latest Hot Take Point Made episode, Thorin and Kassad spent a solid 10 minutes just yelling at each other. Yes. Monty, you need more insane, inflammatory opinions so we can harness some of that energy. Couldn't stop smiling while listening. The problem, guys, is like, that was Listen Loco, the show for you. Like, you need the person who's going to do that stuff, right? That's never the dynamic you and I have had.
I even told Loco, like, his problem, if you don't know, was Loco actually did get his feelings hurt when you'd have those arguments, believe it or not. He couldn't actually do the wrestling thing of like, I'm just the job of getting beaten in the fight, or it's your turn to win. So I always told him, the sad thing is, mate, we do need to stop this show because you can't take it. But the dynamic, if you could handle it, it's actually mega. I actually think it's fun that there's a show where basically we're friends, but we also argue all the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of a fun,
it's a good show.
Weird angle too. Yeah, I thought it was a good concept.
It's just never been, like, we've done it with guests, but it's never been the dynamic that you and I have on this show. So
no, style.
If you were to separate your life,
also, if you ever watched that, I'd even say there's a life lesson to take from that show he's referring to. Because me and Kassad go at each other, but it was never going to like ruin our friendship or like end the show. Like, that's more like what you do when you're in a bar with your mate, bantering them. You know, it's more like that. You know,
he's Eastern European. He can handle an argument and not get really mad or like forever mad about it. You know what I mean?
I think they might get mad and say they're Eastern, but whatever. We'll just say he's European.
He's Balkans. From the Balkans.
Whatever.
You know what I mean? Those people are not usually bothered by that stuff, in my experience. They're not super sensitive. If you were to separate your life into chapters, what important events mark the beginning/ends of each chapter of life for you? I mean, probably like before I went to college, and then my college, and immediately after college until I moved to Korea, and then my time in Korea, and then my professional time after that, I would say. Kind of my chapters, where it was like, one of them I was a child. One of them I was in the start of my education and my career and figuring out what I wanted to do. Then I was on the casting grind, and then I was trying to expand myself beyond the casting after that, is what I would say. Also having kids,
say most of mine are esports related, because it's things like when I stopped being just a behind the camera person who came on camera, when I tried to develop a persona, even things that people wouldn't know. Like, for example, back in the day, I never really was someone who did like opinion-based stuff. I'd say that's a massive difference, because when you start doing opinion-based stuff, you become part of the story and part of the thing that can be critiqued. And you very much enter the arena in a way you're not when you're just the person looking and observing, you know. So I think a lot of these things have massive effect on who you are.
100% agree with the take from last week that QBs have too much protection while scrambling/running. Watch the Mo Lewis hit on Drew Bledsoe for an example of a legal QB hit from 2001. That hit legit almost killed him. Yeah. And then the second part is, I just had my first ever double quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's. That is my favorite McDonald's hamburger. Shout out to McDonald's for sponsoring Power Spike. And it was stellar.
I realized, you know, the obvious move, Monty, if you really are toxic, is your use of a time machine is just this. You just go back to 2001 and you just tell Drew Bledsoe, psst, and then that's all you do. Because here's the thing, you're not being a hit. You didn't do anything to Tom Brady. You just make sure Drew Bledsoe's okay, and he keeps playing.
Tom Brady
and
never comes
in. All I'm saying, Monty, is the 199th pick or whatever, probably just stays on the bench, just watching, going, yeah, go Drew, and then that's it. Problem solved. No.
It is crazy how much that affected history.
It would. That is like the craziest butterfly effect of all time, literally.
In your opinion, what is the best fast food cheeseburger? I do like the double quarter pounder with cheese. I like Wendy's hamburgers a lot too. So like Dave's double. I
actually think Wendy's is underrated, because what I like about those is it has more of a traditional vibe of a diner to me. Does a Wendy's burger? I quite like it.
Yeah. So I think those are, I mean, not a burger, but like I like Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches as well. It's probably the ones I eat the most, I would say. In Korea,
I
it's
actually think in the
definitely
modern day, I can see why now every chain in America does a chicken sandwich, because like spicy chicken sandwich is probably one of the better American fast foods. Like they obviously the fucking
oh yeah.
Chick-fil-A, the Popeyes one, they're all pretty good. They're all pretty
Yep.
good from what I've tried.
The season 1 Owl Spitfire team dynamics was interesting as an outsider. That was a very interesting team. Can either of you give some insight into how they struggled but eventually won the inaugural season? No, my wife is just GM of that team. I have no idea. It's like, come on,
it wasn't
dude.
one of the reasons, as you remember, Monty, like they always had insane talent in Spitfire, but if you remember, they were always like working out like what exact like combo of players to use and stuff. Like
the thing is that when Cloud9 had acquired that roster, they basically had acquired 2 rosters because they didn't know which combination of players they wanted to use. So it took some trial period. They also
they were all mega, right? It was like a mega talented set of players.
Yeah, there were 10 players on that roster, and so they were trying to figure out which iteration. And then over time, they realized like which players were working as a team in that environment and which players weren't. You know, I look, man, I'm just gonna say it because like, what the fuck is the point in like not revealing this now? But it's like there were some attitude issues on that team too. Like I would say, Birdring's motivation issues were very serious. Like his ability to like actually mentally commit to playing the game. I mean, phenomenally talented player, but that guy like really struggled. And like I also think that it took them like kind of hitting the wall, because remember, one of the cool things about that first season of Overwatch League was that playoffs were like best of 3s of best of 7s, or like, you know, so when they lost that first match to the LA Gladiators, like it was the wake-up call that they needed to just like bulldoze the rest of the playoffs. But they were very talented. I would say it was just like finding the right group of players amongst those 10. Very interesting, though.
Like, put it this way, some of the players on that team, Prophet and fucking Gesture, some of these are some of the best players of all time. And these really
Prophet probably is the GOAT of Overwatch, so.
Yeah, I thought he was amazing. It's one of those players, right? That's why I knew, sadly, Monty, that no one's going to watch Overwatch, because I actually did tell some of the people who like FPS games, but you don't have to know anything about the game. Just watch this Prophet guy when he's on a DPS. Like, watch some of these games. You'll be into it, but they just couldn't get into it for whatever reason. I actually think it's the mobile element that held people off on that, Monty. Is like you had to also understand like the old economy and what the comp is. I think it just made it wasn't as streamlined as a traditional FPS where you just watch Quake or CS or whatever, you know.
It also got more MOBA-y and less FPS-y over time, which was a big problem.
Yeah.
I always thought, like most people, that Riot releases skin lines and then buffs the champions that are in said skin that may have fallen off popularity, especially in pro, thinking Ari for pro plays. My question is, did Riot intentionally do Worlds patches the last couple of years to favor T1 to win so they could get that $500 Faker skin? I don't think so.
That would be a delicious conspiracy theory, wouldn't it? But you know what? I'm not like Brody Bonners, and I can't tell you that information, can I? So let's hope someone in the whistleblower in the Korean scene comes forward with that information. It certainly would be spicy, put it that way.
It's also, if you looked at the start of Worlds last year and the way the meta was going, it wasn't the T1 meta that eventually developed, so I think that's very unlikely. I think T1 was getting their ass kicked, and so went back to what was working for them, and they found out that it worked very well.
For real, if you ever go back, guys, it's not even an exaggeration. Normally you can't say this, but it's so obvious. If you ever go back, it's when they played Gen.G and they got beaten by them. You could tell they were like, fuck this meta read, and they just switched up to what they did before me. It's actually obvious. You can go back and track it. Like, essentially Gen.G inadvertently, like, assisted T1 to win Worlds in a fucked up sense. If you go watch the Swiss system.
What do you think would have happened if Bjergsen had stayed in EU? It's a very interesting question. Would he have
been... By the way, I'll tell you straight up, I think he would have been a way better player, mate.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think about all those... Like, the thing where he was, like, a shot call the whole time. He wouldn't have had to do that. He could have just played with, like, people who could fucking do that role from other positions. He could have played with awesome junglers and supports. And I just look back, Monty, and I think, pick any team you want. Fnatic, G2. This guy could have been on some really, really good teams, mate. Really good teams.
His peaks also coincided with when Europe was like had 2 teams in semifinals in 2015, and like he played, you know, pretty well until like the late 2010s too.
Something in 2015, aren't they cooking at this point in time? Put Bjergsen and like Origin with like Soaz and fucking Sven, and they would be fire, mate.
Yeah, the Mythy Sven roster.
Yeah, that would be a banger.
So Yep.
I even think also it would have actually developed his personality a little bit more, because in NA, he always just did that sort of like squeaky clean public image and I just play the game really well. I actually think in Europe, he could have had like proper like fucking rivalries, and he could have like been like a star in a different way. He actually, the sad thing is, even though, look, he got to be very famous because of TSM, but I also do feel like that's actually one of the what ifs, is what if he just stayed in Europe? Same with Jensen, though, to be fair. They also could have had an awesome career, right?
Yep. If you were to become president and had to hire a press secretary to be your main spokesperson, would you choose Smooya or Doublelift?
The joke being that they're obviously the worst people because they would just int it instantly, is what he's joking about. Because if you don't know, guys, Smooya in CS does the same thing Doublelift does, where they just say what they're thinking without thinking first. And then in doing so, they get hoisted by their own petard and fuck up their own career. So the joke is that is a Sophie's Choice type question there, Monty, because...
Well, as you pointed out, I think I would pick Doublelift because, as you pointed out, whoever holds Doublelift leash at any point in time does, in fact, control him. So I feel like you could mitigate most of the damage simply by being the person he's trying to please.
We also did learn, by definition, from his time in TSM, as long as those checks are flowing, he won't say shit against you. So I tell you what, if we employ him, yeah, it'd be lovely to us, their money. He'll be talking about what a privilege it is to be our press secretary. Of course, when we fire him, Monty, he'll say about how we're a scumbag and we should be investigated and, you know, we were bad all along. So how does that work? Doublelift. Go on.
All right, we're going to do a couple more questions, guys, and then we're going to be done with this episode. So here's one. With Foreplay and Nerd Legion lowering me into the deeper knowledge of film, I was curious what your thoughts are on Quentin Tarantino as a director. I'm actually not a big Tarantino fan. How about you?
Here's the thing. I'm not in the sense that like he's not like he wouldn't be in my like top 5 directors, but he is one of those ones where like I'll probably watch every film he does, and in general I enjoy a lot of them. And in fact, one of the things I do enjoy about him is I actually think he's done a very, very good job branding himself. Not only does he have a lot of his oeuvre that's kind of like self-referential, like he does that thing where he builds up certain patterns and themes and actors that you know are going to be in every film, but I also do think it does come across in his films who he is as a person, which is that he is an enormous cinephile. He's obviously somebody who was obsessed with cinema and the great things in it. And one thing I do appreciate about his work is one of the reasons, Monty, it's a bit like I often reference one of my favorite singer-songwriters is Noel Gallagher from Oasis, right? He has the same thing put to him, which is like, you're just plagiarizing. It's like, no. You know that famous saying, like, you know, a good artist borrows and a genius steals.
Amateur artist borrows. Yeah.
The reason why that applies to these guys is what they're stealing is something they totally understand, and then they do something interesting with it. They don't just steal it and do a worse version. They like do something, they make it their own. And so what I would say is when guys like that steal and do like sort of a collage effect, they're also in some ways homaging that and celebrating what was great. So I also just, one thing I do appreciate about Tarantino is I always feel like even the parts that feel familiar, it's almost like he's celebrating that aspect of cinema or a great past film. So I enjoy his passion for cinema. Yeah.
It is a meta commentary, and like you see that in the stylishness of like the Kill Bill movies and everything. I may have seen every Tarantino film. I have enjoyed more recently what he did with like Inglorious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is like riffs on history, like alternate history stuff, which I think could be interesting if you know the history. I have to say, like some of his films, his more contemporary films, like Pulp Fiction is obviously great. I just find him to be a little bit overrated because I think in the end he got a little bit too like pulpy and campy and violent for me. Like I really dislike Hateful Eight as a movie. Like I'm just like, what the fuck is the point of this movie? There's some great acting in that movie, but like the violence is just kind of stupid and ridiculous. So I don't know. I think he's all right. He's not my cup of tea. Let's put it that way. We'll do a couple more. We'll just do some media questions. Zombie flicks is something of a guilty pleasure of mine. Do you guys have any zombie movies or series that you like? I love 28 Days Later. I think 28 Days Later is great. Danny Boyle. I think
the concept, good reinvention. Like I did think the idea that they could run at you was more terrifying, you know?
Yeah. Train to Busan, the Korean film. I enjoyed that one. Those are probably two of my favorite ones. I'm not a huge fan of like the really classic zombie films like Dawn of the Dead or that kind of stuff. Do you have any zombie movies you really like?
I mean, believe it or not, the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead's not bad. That's not a bad one, where they're like caught in the ball, and that's pretty well done. It's not bad. I'm not a huge fan of zombie films myself, so not really. I'm not really a horror fan in general. It's more Richard Sport, if people don't know.
I am looking forward to, Thorin, that new horror movie that's coming out, Long Legs, where Nicolas Cage is the... I've heard it's supposed to be very good. Nicolas Cage is a serial killer in that one.
Problem with that is, remember, I haven't seen the trailer that you're imagining, Monty. So when you tell me there's a movie coming out with Nicolas Cage, I'm thinking of him as like a daddy long legs already, and it sounds shit. You know what I mean? But it's okay. It's okay, man. It's all right. I'm sure it'll be different.
I mean, like I said, I like Ari Aster a lot. So I really enjoyed Hereditary and Midsommar.
In that case, the one you should be looking forward to is that new Robert Eggers, the Nosferatu reboot.
Yeah.
That'll be up your alley, right?
Yeah, some of the more modern horror. I wouldn't say I'm a big like horror fan like Richard, but some of the modern horror stuff I've really enjoyed.
I do think, by the way, that of that Robert Eggers guy, that first one he did, The Witch, is mad underrated. I think that's a pretty good. Have you watched that one, Monty? The Witch.
Oh yes, The Witch. Yes, I've seen that one. Yeah,
that'll be right up your alley.
Yeah, that one's good.
That was good.
I have seen that one.
Yeah. Anyway, we didn't even answer about zombies. We just answered what we wanted.
I did. I answered about zombies. I like 28 Days Later. What are the actually good animes? Monster is already on my watch list. We've been over this one. Like I like Monster, FLCL, Evangelion, Cowboy Bebop. The late 90s, early 2000s classics.
I've already said Legend of the Galactic Heroes is the one I always recommend. I think it's the most obvious one to check out. By the way, obviously, since we read it on 4Player, I know these are films, but all of the Satoshi Kon films are worth watching. Just watch all those immediately.
Yeah. And also on that, he did a series called Paranoia Agent, which is only 13 episodes. That is fucking great. So he did 4 or 5 movies in Paranoia Agent. Just watch all of that. Just watch all of that. That's good shit. All right. Let's go with, all right. We'll do one basketball question for you and then we'll be done. Any thoughts regarding the Lakers hiring JJ Redick as their next coach? Hopefully Thorin and Monty have an episode about, or Thorin and Maui have an episode talking about that for the basketball show. Love that show, especially the Clark bit from the last episode. Curious to hear some thoughts. I don't know anything about basketball.
It's just a reference where, because everyone talks about Caitlin Clark, that new WNBA player, and it's
right.
I just, as a joke at the end of the episode, was like, we'll probably now do half an hour of that, and then I cut the episode. So it was like a silly gag to fuck with people, obviously, because obviously I don't give a shit about that. So I would just say I actually hate this signing. Basically, if you don't know, Monty, this is actually one of the most egregious sports signings probably ever. JJ Redick is a former player. He was a good player. He was like a shooter, basically. He was sort of like a good role player, basically. Okay. And also, he's not just like a player. He's one of those guys who went to Duke, and by the way, he's like a white guy. He's like more of a guy who's probably was a great student as well. So he's kind of he actually comes across as very professional. And what he did was, he's also a bit spicy though. He's one of those guys who goes hard. So he did a bunch of podcasts and he got a lot of bold opinions, talking shit on the past year. And recently, in the last few months, he did a podcast with LeBron James, as in him and LeBron do their own podcast. Remember, LeBron plays for the Lakers. And now magically, he's the head coach of the Lakers. This is actually terrible. I'm not joking. People talk about things like, this person ruined sports. LeBron is actually ruining the NBA, guys. He's getting people who aren't coaches, who he just likes and are his yes man, and just bringing them into his team. So that essentially he can just fake it, control his team. That's toxic as fuck. What is that? That's not a good setup, guys. That is a bad setup, I'm telling you right now. I don't like it personally.
I saw too today that LeBron is supposed to get a new 3-year max contract from the Lakers.
There you go.
As well.
Nothing comfortable about that. I know, fucking hell, man. Conflict of interest is bonkers, isn't it? I know. But whatever, it is what it is.
If the Lakers just want to be famous, then I guess that's an interesting way
to do it for fame, of course. Yeah, sure. Because sadly, if people don't know, by the way, he's certainly not a bad player. LeBron's still a good player, but put it this way, he's not close to the best player in the NBA. That ship sailed years ago. He's probably, if I had to get, I'd probably say he's the 12th best player in the NBA. And by the way, haters are going to go mental, but that's still pretty good for when you're 40 years
39.
Old. 39. What do you want? Yeah, that's pretty legit. That's like fake. Just calm down. They're just not the best anymore. You fucking lunatic. So it's all good. But I hate that signing though, because if people don't know, more seriously, Monty, one thing I've always agreed with you, and I've got to tell you, mate, a lot of CS coaches are coming around to your perspective now. A lot of them now get that the dumbest move is to be best friends with the players.
So
You've
stupid,
always
dude.
got to have a certain distance, because otherwise you can't properly discipline people. By the way, you're going to do stupid things, like sometimes you're going to pick the player over the org if you're too close to them. So I actually want there always to be like a professional distance. It's why actually what I do love is stories where you have like a great player and then they have a great coach, and maybe they don't always agree, but they sort of like negotiate, and there's like a respect there, and you find the compromises that let you win. I prefer that approach to sports, not like this guy, hey, it's my guy is the coach. Also, what do you do if you're another player, by the way, in that team? Like, yeah, good luck going to the coach. Yeah, coach, LeBron's fucking it all up. Yeah, oh, he's going to go, yes, I'll do something about that. Give me a break, you know what I mean? There's no way. And I just hate the idea that if you've never ever been a coach before, it's a different skill set. Being a coach, guys, is nothing about how much you know about the game. It's its own skill set. So in my opinion, you should never start at the top. You should always start, like, if you're going to be a coach, you go to like a small team and you prove yourself. You apply your trade, you learn your craft. By the way, in an ideal world, you start as assistant coach. You learn from some legendary guy who knows what he's doing. You don't just go straight into a head coaching gig. Like, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It almost never happens at the pro sports level, too.
It's wild, isn't it?
Even if you were a pro player, you usually start out. I mean, a bunch of the pro players who are head coaches in like the NBA and NFL, they started out learning from career coaches, basically, and being a lot of them, at least in the NFL, like started being positional coaches for the positions they played professionally, right? And then slowly worked their way up the ranks. So I don't know, like Dan Campbell, for instance, right? Like Dan Campbell worked over the years after being a professional tight end into then transitioning into a coaching career, particularly with like the Saints, right? And under Sean Payton. So whatever.
I do love as well, though, that like we have pointed out in the past, because it isn't just that one fucking guy, mate. There are loads of fucking people in the NFL, Monty, who've gotten coaching jobs just thanks to Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and everyone. Like, these guys have gotten so many like
shout out Adam
head
Gase.
coaching jobs, haven't they? Of course. They've got so many, though, haven't they? It's bonkers. I know.
All right, guys. That'll do it for this week. So we'll be back next week to kind of wrap up the regional play before we do some previewing of the Esports World Cup. So we'll see you then.